They didn't knock to ask permission. They knocked because they were right on time for the showing. The real estate agent held a glossy folder featuring my beach condo on the cover, looking at me like I was just a squatter. When he announced the sellers were my parents, I assumed it was their usual manipulation. Then I ran the title record. My blood froze seeing a transfer deed from me to them, recorded exactly 24 hours ago. My name is Savannah Phillips, and I am 36 years old. I was standing in the middle of my living room, holding a spray bottle of organic lemon cleaner and a microfiber cloth, when the sound of my life fracturing came in the form of 3 sharp, authoritative knocks. It was not a tentative knock. It was not the knock of a neighbor asking to borrow sugar, nor was it the polite tap of a delivery driver. It was a proprietary sound. It was the sound of someone who believed they owned the wood they were striking. I froze. The silence of the condo, usually filled only by the rhythmic hum of the air conditioning and the distant, muffled roar of the Atlantic Ocean 7 floors down, suddenly felt fragile. I was not expecting anyone. My grandfather, Warren, had been the only other person who ever visited this place unannounced, and he had been gone for 2 weeks. This was supposed to be my weekend of solitude, a time to scrub the floors and wash the linens, and convince myself that I could exist outside the suffocating orbit of the Phillips Family Trust. I walked to the door, my bare feet silent on the cool tile. I checked the peephole. The fisheye lens distorted the hallway, but the figures standing there were unmistakable in their intent. There was a man in a navy suit that cost more than my first car, flanked by 2 couples who looked like they had just stepped out of a catalog for luxury resort wear. They were holding coffee cups, paper cups with sleeves, the kind you grab when you are busy and important and on a schedule. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door just enough to slide my face into the gap. "Can I help you?" I asked. My voice was calm, but my pulse was hammering against the inside of my wrist. The man in the suit did not blink. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. It was a sales smile, practiced and polished and entirely devoid of warmth. He looked at his watch, a heavy, silver thing that probably weighed a pound, and then back at me. "Good afternoon," he said. His voice was a rich baritone, projected for an audience. "We are here for the 2 o'clock private showing." I frowned, my grip tightening on the door handle. "I think you have the wrong unit. I didn't schedule any repairs or maintenance." The agent's smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second, before reassembling itself into something more patronizing. He did not look at me as if I were the owner. He looked at me as if I were a squatter, or perhaps a maid who had not checked the roster. He lifted a hand, displaying a thick, glossy folder. On the cover was a high-resolution photograph of the building, Tide Glass Condominiums. "This is Unit 7B, he stated, not asking. "The penthouse tier." "Yes," I said, "and it is not for sale." The 2 couples behind him shifted. One of the women whispered something to her husband, who was busy looking past my shoulder, trying to catch a glimpse of the ocean view through my living room windows. They were already mentally arranging their furniture in my space. They were already debating which walls to knock down. The agent sighed, a small puff of impatience. "Ma'am, we have a confirmed appointment, private showing, confirmed by the sellers this morning." He opened the folder with a snap. He pulled out a sheet of paper, turning it around so I could see it. It was a listing sheet. I saw the address. I saw the square footage. I saw the asking price, $2.4 million, a number that made my stomach turn over. And then I saw the names listed under the header marked Seller, Raymond and Celeste Phillips. The air left my lungs. It felt as if the hallway had suddenly depressurized. Raymond and Celeste, my parents. For a moment, I could not speak. The absurdity of it was so large it refused to fit inside my head. This apartment was mine. It had been deeded to me legally, properly, and exclusively by my grandfather 2 weeks before he died. I had held the paper. I had seen the stamp. It was the one thing, the only thing, in 36 years that I had owned that did not come with strings attached to my father's checkbook. "There must be a mistake," I said. my voice sounding thin and foreign to my own ears. My parents do not own this condo. The agent looked at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. I assure you, the paperwork is in order. Are you the tenant? The word hung in the air. Tenant, transient, temporary. No, I said. I am Savannah Phillips. This is my home. The agent raised his eyebrows. Ah, you are the daughter. He said it as if that explained everything, as if being the daughter meant I was merely a placeholder, a loose end that the real owners had forgotten to tie up before the open house. He turned to the buyers, offering them an apologetic shrug. Family miscommunication. It happens. If you will just give us a moment. He turned back to me, stepping closer, invading the threshold. Look, Miss Phillips, I have a job to do. Your parents were very clear that the unit would be vacant for the showing. If you could just step out for 20 minutes. We can get this done quickly. I looked at him. I looked at the coffee cup in his hand. I looked at the couples waiting with their eager, predatory eyes. They wanted my view. They wanted my grandfather's sanctuary. And they thought they could just walk in because a man in a suit told them it was okay. No, I said. I stepped out into the hallway. Pulling the door shut behind me, I heard the latch click. I did not lock the deadbolt, but I kept my hand on the handle. I needed to be outside. I needed to see what he was holding. Show me the listing agreement, I demanded. The agent hesitated, clearly debating whether to call security or humor me. He chose the latter, likely because he didn't want to cause a scene in front of prospective buyers. He flipped through the folder and handed me a document. It was an exclusive right of sale listing agreement. I scanned the lines rapidly, my eyes hunting for the lie. It was dated 3 days ago. The address was correct. The commission percentage was 6%, and there, at the bottom of the last page, were the signatures. Raymond Phillips, Celeste Phillips. I knew those signatures better than I knew my own face. I had spent my entire life trying to earn their approval, trying to be worthy of the ink from their pens. The loops were perfect. The pressure was consistent. There was no hesitation in the strokes. They had signed this. They had sat down, presumably at the mahogany desk in my father's study, and they had sold my home. How did you get in the building? I asked, looking up from the paper. My voice was steadier now. The shock was hardening into something cold and sharp. The lobby has a code. The elevator requires a fob. The agent tapped a key card hanging from a lanyard around his neck. We have the code, and the key is in the lockbox. I don't have a lockbox, I said. He pointed to the door handle behind me. I turned. There, clamped around the brushed nickel lever of my front door, was a heavy black metal box, a super lockbox, the kind realtors use. It looked like a tumor growing on the hardware. I stared at it. I had walked through that door 2 hours ago. It hadn't been there. When did you put that there? I asked. One of my associates installed it this morning, the agent said. Standard procedure. You touched my door. You clamped a device onto my property without my permission. With the owner's permission, he corrected me, his tone hardening. Miss Phillips, I understand you're upset. Moving is stressful, but we are on a schedule. These folks drove down from the city specifically for this unit. I took a step back. I pulled my phone from the back pocket of my jeans. I am going to take a picture of this, I said. I raised the phone. I snapped a photo of the listing agreement in his hand. Capturing the signatures clearly, I snapped a photo of the lockbox on my door. I snapped a photo of the agent, and then one of the two couples standing awkwardly by the elevator. Hey, the agent barked, stepping forward. You can't do that. That is proprietary information. It's evidence, I said. My mind was racing, connecting dots that I didn't want to connect. My parents didn't just list the condo. They didn't just forge a signature on a listing agreement. You cannot list a property you do not own. A real estate brokerage of this caliber, I glanced at the logo on the folder, Harborstone Luxury Properties, would never sign a listing agreement without verifying ownership. They would need the deed. They would need proof. You can't sell this, I said, lowering the phone. I have the deed. My grandfather left it to me. It's in my name." The agent looked at me, and for the first time, his expression wasn't condescending. It was pitying. It was the look you give someone who is mentally unwell, someone who has lost their grip on reality. "Miss Phillips," he said slowly, as if speaking to a child. "We ran the title search this morning before we drove over. We always pull title to verify the sellers." My stomach dropped. It felt as if the floor had vanished. "What did you say?" I whispered. "The title," he repeated. "It's clean. The county record shows Raymond and Celeste Phillips as the fee simple owners. The deed was recorded yesterday." The world stopped. Recorded yesterday. My parents didn't just pretend to own it. They actually owned it. According to the government, according to the official ledger of Mariner County, this apartment was theirs. But that was impossible, unless I had given it to them. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to lean against the wall. A transfer, a deed, for them to be the owners. There had to be a piece of paper, signed by me, granting them the property, a quitclaim deed, a warranty deed, something. But I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't seen my parents in a month. I hadn't signed a document since I signed the acceptance of the trust distribution 2 weeks ago. "That's a lie," I said, but the conviction was draining out of my voice. The agent wasn't lying. He had no reason to lie. He was just a shark swimming in water he believed was clear. He had seen the record. "County records don't lie, ma'am," he said, checking his watch again. "Look, if you need a moment to call your father, go ahead. I'm sure he can clear this up. But we need to get inside. Call my father." That was exactly what they wanted. They wanted the phone call. They wanted the hysterical daughter screaming into the receiver, asking why, asking how. They wanted to be the ones to explain it to me. They wanted to control the narrative. "Oh, Savannah, you know you're not good with finances. We're just holding it for you. It's for your own good. We're protecting the asset. If I called them now, I would be playing their game. I would be the child reacting to the parents' discipline." I looked at the lockbox again. I looked at the glossy folder with my balcony on the cover. They had packaged my life. They had turned my sanctuary into a commodity, priced at $2.4 million. "No," I said. "Excuse me?" the agent asked. "No showing," I said. "Not today." "Miss Phillips, I have the key. I have the right—" "You have a key to the lockbox," I said, pointing to the black box. "But I have the deadbolt engaged from the inside, and I'm not leaving." I didn't wait for his response. I turned and opened the door. Slipping back inside before he could wedge his foot in the gap, I slammed it shut. I threw the deadbolt. I engaged the security latch. "Miss Phillips," the agent shouted from the hallway, "this is highly unprofessional. I will be calling your father." "Go ahead," I yelled back at the wood. I stood there, breathing hard, my back pressed against the door. I could hear them muttering in the hallway. I could hear the ding of the elevator as they presumably retreated to the lobby to make angry phone calls. My hands were shaking. I looked down at them. They were trembling so hard I could barely unlock my phone. County record shows they own it. The sentence replayed in my mind on a loop. It was a sentence that defied the laws of physics. I was here. I was me. I had not sold my home. I walked over to the kitchen island where my laptop sat closed. I didn't want to call my parents. I didn't want to hear my mother's voice, soothing and toxic, telling me to calm down. I didn't want to hear my father's bluster. I wanted to see what the agent had seen. I opened the laptop. The screen glowed to life, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun. I didn't go to my email. I didn't go to social media. I opened a new browser window and typed in the URL for the Mariner County Clerk of Courts and Comptroller. I had used this site 2 weeks ago to verify that my grandfather's deed to me had been recorded. I knew exactly where to click. Official record search, accept terms and conditions, search by name. I typed in my own name first. Phillips, Savannah. The search wheel spun for a second that felt like a year. Then the results populated. There were 2 entries. The first was dated 14 days ago. Grant deed. Grantor. Warren Phillips. Grantee. Savannah Phillips. That was the deed my grandfather gave me. That was the truth. My eyes moved to the second entry. It was dated yesterday. Time stamped at 3:45 in the afternoon. Quitclaim deed. Grantor. Savannah Phillips. Grantee. Raymond Phillips and Celeste Phillips. I stared at the screen. The text was black and stark against the white background. It was a simple line of data, but it carried the weight of a catastrophe. I clicked the PDF icon to view the document image. The document loaded. It was a standard Florida quitclaim deed. I scrolled down to the signature page, and there it was. Savannah Phillips. The signature was a looping, elegant scrawl. It looked like my signature. It had the same slant. It had the same flourish on the S. If I were a bank teller, or a clerk, or a real estate agent, I would look at that signature and believe it was mine. But I knew. I looked at the date next to the signature. Yesterday. I was here, in this condo, painting the guest room. I hadn't seen a notary. I hadn't signed a paper. I looked at the notary block. It wasn't a wet stamp. It was a digital seal. Remote online notarization. I felt a coldness spread from my chest to my fingertips. They hadn't just forged my name. They had used the system. They had used technology to bypass the need for my physical presence. They had stolen my house from a computer screen, likely while sipping wine in their library. I reached for my phone again. The notification bubble on the screen showed 3 missed calls from Dad. I ignored them. I wasn't going to ask them why. I wasn't going to beg for it back. They had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. They had taken the one thing my grandfather had given me to ensure my independence, and they had turned it into a liquidity event. I closed the laptop lid. I didn't need to see any more on the screen. I needed the source code. I needed the chain of custody. I needed to know exactly whose digital fingerprints were on that transfer. I grabbed my keys. Not the condo keys, but the car keys. The agent said they had already pulled title. That meant the clock was ticking. If they had a buyer, they could close in days, maybe less if it was a cash deal. I looked around the condo one last time. The lemon scent was still in the air, but the peace was gone. It was a crime scene now. I walked to the door, checked the peephole to make sure the hallway was empty, and slipped out. I didn't take the elevator. I took the stairs. 7 flights down to the garage, bypassing the lobby where the agent might still be lurking. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to shout. I was going to the recorder's office. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles had turned the color of old bone. I was driving, but I was not really seeing the road. The palm trees and strip malls of Driftwood Cay were blurring into a smear of green and beige. Passing by like a film reel stuck on fast forward, my mind was not on the asphalt. It was drifting back. Trying to pinpoint the exact moment I had lost the war, I did not even know I was fighting. It had to start with Grandpa Warren. Warren Phillips was a man who seemed to have been born in the wrong family. While the rest of the Phillips clan treated wealth as a personality trait, wearing their net worth like heavy armor, Warren treated money as an inconvenience he had to manage so he could get back to fishing. He hated the country club. He hated the galas. He hated the way my father, Raymond, would announce the price of a bottle of wine before pouring it, as if the cost was more important than the taste. This beach condo, Unit 7B at Tide Glass, was his escape pod. He called it the Raft. It was the one place where he did not have to be Warren Phillips. The tycoon. He could just be Warren, the guy who wore boat shoes until the soles flapped loose and who drank domestic beer out of a can. 2 weeks ago, I had sat in the office of his estate attorney, a woman with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose and a voice like dry parchment. Grandpa had been gone only a few days then, but he had been planning this for years. "It is done, Savannah," the lawyer had said, sliding a thick envelope across the mahogany desk toward me. "The deed has been recorded. It is yours, free and clear." I remembered picking up the document. It felt heavy, not just physically, but spiritually. It was a warranty deed. For the first time in my 36 years of life, I held something that was truly mine. It was not a car leased in my father's name to optimize tax liability. It was not a credit card attached to the family account so my mother, Celeste, could audit my spending habits. It was a piece of the earth, or at least, a piece of the sky 7 stories up, that belonged to me. I did not want to show it off. That was a Phillips trait. And I had spent my adult life trying to scrub the Phillips out of my system. I just wanted to breathe. I wanted to know that if the world fell apart, if I lost my job at Redwood Ridge Compliance Group, if my parents decided to cut me off for some perceived slight, I had a door I could lock. But you cannot keep a secret from Raymond and Celeste Phillips. Information travels through my family like a virus. When they found out, 3 days after the funeral, they did not scream. They did not threaten to sue. That would have been easier to handle. Anger I could fight. Benevolence was a trap I never saw coming. They had invited me to dinner at the main house, a sprawling estate that felt more like a museum than a home. We sat on the patio, the air thick with the scent of expensive jasmine and the humidity of a Florida evening. "We are so proud of you," my mother had said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. Her fingers were cool and dry. "Dad wanted you to have that place. It is a big responsibility." "Huge," my father added, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "Property taxes in Mariner County are skyrocketing, and the insurance? With the hurricane risks? It is a nightmare to navigate." I had stiffened, ready to defend myself. "I can handle it, Dad. I have a job. I have savings." "Of course you do, sweetie," my mother soothed, pouring me more wine. "But why should you stress over paperwork? You know how busy you are with your compliance work. You work such long hours." "We will add the condo to the family umbrella policy," my father said, as if he were deciding on the weather. "And I will have our accountant handle the property taxes. We can just deduct it from the trust distribution at the end of the year. You will not even notice. It will be seamless." "And the homeowners association," my mother chimed in. "Those people are vultures. Savannah, you do not want to deal with them. Let your father's assistant handle the correspondence. We just want you to enjoy the place. Think of it as our gift to you, helping you manage the legacy." It sounded so reasonable. It sounded so caring. They were offering to take the boring, gritty parts of homeownership off my plate so I could just have the view. It was the ultimate luxury. Ownership without the administration. And then came the request. The small, logical, fatal request. "We should probably have a spare key," my mother said casually, picking a piece of lint off her linen trousers. "Just for emergencies. What if a pipe bursts while you are away? Or if there is a hurricane warning and someone needs to bring the patio furniture inside?" I hesitated. I remembered the feeling of the key in my pocket, the sharp teeth of the metal against my thumb. It was my key, but they were my parents. They were paying for the insurance. They were helping. Refusing them would seem petty. It would seem ungrateful. It would prove that I was the difficult child they always whispered about. "Okay," I had said. "Just for emergencies." I gave them the key. I handed them the weapon they would use to execute me, and I thanked them for taking it. For the next 10 days, I lived in a state of blissful ignorance. I set up my workspace in the corner of the living room, facing the ocean. I worked my hours for Redwood Ridge, auditing compliance logs and writing reports, and in the evenings, I sat on the balcony and listened to the waves crash against the seawall. I felt safe. I felt hidden. I was so happy that I missed the warning shots. As I drove toward the county center, stopped at a red light that seemed to last for an eternity. I grabbed my phone from the passenger seat. My hands were shaking less now, replaced by a cold, methodical need to understand. I unlocked the screen and opened my email app. I searched for HOA. There it was, an email from the Tide Glass Association manager, dated 4 days ago. The subject line was innocuous. Estoppel request received. Unit 7B. I hadn't opened it. I remembered seeing it come in while I was on a Zoom call. I had assumed estoppel was some kind of routine maintenance term, Or maybe a noise complaint notification. I had archived it without a second thought. I opened it now. Dear owner, this email is to confirm we have received an estoppel request regarding the pending sale of your unit. The certificate will be forwarded to the title company within 48 hours. Pending sale. They had told the building management 4 days ago. They had started the paperwork while I was sitting in the unit, drinking coffee and thinking about how lucky I was. I swiped out of the email and went to my text messages. I scrolled down, past the unread messages from my mother asking if I was eating enough, down to a thread from a generic 5-digit short code. My grandfather had been paranoid about property fraud. He had told me stories about people stealing houses with a single piece of paper. Sign up for the alert service, Savannah, he had told me years ago. It is free. It pings you if anyone records a document with your name on it. I had signed up to humor him. I stared at the message thread. There, sitting at the very bottom, was a text received yesterday at 3:45 in the afternoon. Alert. New document recorded in Mariner County for Phillips. Savannah. Doc type. Deed. I closed my eyes. I remembered that moment. I was in the grocery store, buying lemons for the cleaning solution. My phone had buzzed. I had glanced at it, seen the word deed, and my brain had auto-filled the rest. I thought it was a delayed notification for the deed from Grandpa. I thought the system was just catching up. I had swiped the notification away and went back to picking out fruit. I had been notified of my own eviction, and I had swiped left. The light turned green. A car behind me honked, a long, impatient blast. I stepped on the gas. The realization settled into the pit of my stomach like a stone. This was not a sudden theft. This was not a burglary. This was an administrative coup. My parents had not broken in. They had not held a gun to my head. They had simply utilized the bureaucracy that I was too naive to monitor. They counted on me being Savannah the dreamer, Savannah the artist, Savannah who was not good with details. They were right. I had been that Savannah. I pulled into the parking lot of the Mariner County Governmental Center. The building was a brutalist concrete block, ugly and imposing. Surrounded by a sea of asphalt, it looked like a fortress designed to protect paper. I put the car in park and turned off the ignition. The silence rushed back in. I was not that Savannah anymore. That Savannah died the moment she saw the lockbox on her door. I pulled up the browser on my phone again. Navigating back to the recorder's portal, I needed to see it one more time before I walked in there. I needed to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. I typed in the parcel number this time, bypassing the name search to see the raw data of the land itself. Owner of record, Raymond Phillips and Celeste Phillips. Mailing address, P.O., Box 404, Driftwood K. They had even changed the mailing address. They had routed the official correspondence to a box I didn't have a key to. They had severed me from my property surgically, cutting every line of communication, every legal tether, until I was just a ghost haunting a condo I used to own. I stared at the names on the screen. They looked so official, so permanent, but they were not permanent. They were text in a database, and databases could be corrected. I grabbed my bag, making sure the original deed, the one Grandpa gave me, the one with the wet ink and the raised seal, was safely inside. It was the only weapon I had left. I opened the car door and stepped out into the humid heat. I was done being the daughter. I was done being the beneficiary. I walked toward the glass doors of the government center, my heels clicking a sharp, steady rhythm on the pavement. I was going to meet the system that had stolen my house, and I was going to make it choke on the truth. The air inside the Mariner County Recorder of Deeds office was different from the air outside. Outside, it was humid, salty, and smelled of asphalt baking in the Florida sun. Inside, it was 68 degrees, smelling of dry toner, floor wax, and the specific, dusty scent of bureaucratic eternity. I pulled a ticket from the dispenser near the door, number B42. The waiting area was a sea of gray fabric chairs, half of them occupied by people clutching manila envelopes. There was no screaming here, no drama. This was the engine room of ownership, where passions and dreams were reduced to parcel numbers and data entry. I sat down, clutching my bag against my chest. Inside was the original deed my grandfather, Warren, had given me. It felt hot against my ribs, like a live coal. The digital board on the wall chimed, now serving B42 at Station 6. I stood up and walked toward the counter. It was a long bank of laminate faux wood, separated from the public by a sheet of plexiglass that stopped at chest height. Behind it, a row of clerks typed rhythmically, their faces illuminated by the pale blue glow of dual monitors. Station 6 was manned by a young woman with elaborate acrylic nails that clicked against her keyboard like hail on a tin roof. She didn't look up as I approached. "Help you?" she asked, her eyes scanning a document on her left screen. "I need to run a title search," I said. My voice was steady, stripped of the panic that was clawing at my throat. "I need the full chain of title and the current owner of record for a specific property." The clerk sighed. Finally looking at me, she had the tired expression of someone who spent 8 hours a day explaining to people that they were in the wrong building. "You can do that on the public terminals over there," she said, pointing a long pink fingernail toward a row of computers against the far wall. "It is 50 cents a page to print. I need an official copy," I said. "Certified, and I need to see the metadata." "The submission logs," she paused. "We don't usually give submission logs to the public, just the recorded instrument." I reached into my bag and pulled out the warranty deed. I slid it under the plexiglass partition. "I am the owner," I said. "Or at least, I was until yesterday afternoon. I believe a fraudulent conveyance was recorded against this parcel. I need to see exactly how it happened." The word fraudulent acted like a spark in a room full of gas. The clerk's posture straightened instantly. In this building, fraud wasn't a crime of passion. It was a paperwork error that ruined weekends. She took the deed, glanced at the parcel number, a string of digits starting with 059, and typed it into her system. Click, 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 enter. I watched her face. For a few seconds, it was blank, just processing data. Then, her eyebrows pulled together. She squinted at the screen. She hit the down arrow key, scrolling. Then she stopped. She didn't look at me. She picked up her desk phone and punched in a 4-digit extension. "Mrs. Gable," she said into the receiver. Her voice dropped to a hush. "Can you come to Station 6? I have a sequence issue on a 059 parcel." She hung up and looked at me with a new kind of wariness. "The supervisor is coming." I didn't move. "What do you see?" "I can't speculate. Ma'am, the record is active." 2 minutes later, Mrs. Gable arrived. She was an older woman with short, steel-gray hair and glasses on a chain. She didn't smile. She radiated the calm, terrifying authority of a librarian who knows you have an overdue book. She stepped behind the clerk, placed a hand on the back of the chair, and leaned into the screen. "Pull up the index," Mrs. Gable commanded. The clerk typed. "Okay," Mrs. Gable muttered, reading the screen. "Grant deed. Warren Phillips to Savannah Phillips, recorded 14 days ago. Looks clean. Documentary stamps paid." "That is this one," I said, pointing to the paper on the counter. "That is the original." Mrs. Gable looked at the paper, then back at the screen. "Okay, then we have a quitclaim deed, recorded yesterday, 3:45 p.m. Grantor, Savannah Phillips. Grantee, Raymond and Celeste Phillips." She turned her head slowly to look at me. Her eyes were magnified by her lenses, inspecting me like a specimen. "You are Savannah Phillips?" "Yes." "Did you sign a quitclaim deed yesterday transferring this property to your parents?" "No," I said. "I was cleaning my kitchen. I have not seen my parents in a month." Mrs. Gable pursed her lips. "Open the image," she told the clerk. The clerk double-clicked. A PDF opened on the large monitor. Mrs. Gable rotated the screen on its swivel arm so I could see it. "Is that your signature?" she asked. I leaned in. The image was crisp. The document was a standard Florida quitclaim form, likely downloaded from a legal template site. At the bottom, on the line marked Grantor, was a signature in blue ink. Savannah Phillips. It was a good forgery. It wasn't a shaky, hesitant trace. It was confident. It had the slight disconnection between the P and the H that I used to have when I was in college. It looked like the signature on my old student loans. It looked like the signature on the birthday cards I sent them. It looks like how I used to sign, I said, my finger hovering over the screen but not touching it. But I didn't write it, not yesterday, and not on this document. Look at the notary block, Mrs. Gable said, tapping the glass. I looked. It wasn't a physical stamp. It was a digital seal. A block of text and a QR code indicating an electronic notarization session. State of Virginia. Electronic Notary Public. Jessica L. Miller. Virginia? I asked. I am in Florida. The condo is in Florida. Why is the notary in Virginia? Remote online notarization. Mrs. Gable said, her voice dry. Ron, it is legal. Since 2020, you can notarize a document from anywhere if you pass the identity verification and do a video session. The notary sits in Virginia. The signer sits here. They verify ID, record the session, and slap the digital seal on it. I never did a video session, I said. Scroll down. Mrs. Gable ordered the clerk. Show me the ID attachment. RON sessions usually require a scan of the signer's identification to be appended to the transaction log. The clerk scrolled to the third page of the PDF. My breath hitched. There, in black and white, was a scan of a Florida driver's license. My face, 5 years younger, stared back at me. I was wearing my hair in bangs then. I hadn't worn bangs since I was 31. I looked at the data fields on the license image. Expiration date, 06-14-2020. That license is expired, I whispered. I lost that license 3 years ago. I left it at my parents' house in a drawer when I moved out, and I got a replacement with my new address. Mrs. Gable leaned in closer, squinting. The notary accepted an expired ID? It shouldn't have cleared, the clerk said, sounding offended on a professional level. The system usually flags expired credentials. Unless they did a credible witness verification, Mrs. Gable mused. Or the notary was negligent, or the notary is part of it. She looked at me. Do you have your current ID? I pulled my wallet out and slapped my current valid license on the counter. It showed my current apartment address, not the P.O. box listed on the fake deed, and the expiration date was 2 years from now. Mrs. Gable looked at the valid license, then at the screen with the expired one. She nodded. Once, a verdict had been reached. Okay, she said. We have a problem. Who was the submitter? She took the mouse from the clerk and clicked into the metadata tab. This was the view the public didn't see at home. This showed the digital fingerprints of the file. Submitter ID, HS-title-escrow-774. Organization, Harborstone Title. Escrow. Harborstone, I said, the name on the folder the agent had held, the luxury brokerage. They have an in-house title company. They e-recorded it, Mrs. Gable said, reading the log. Batch upload. It came in yesterday afternoon with a stack of other filings, probably a bulk processing. They didn't walk this to the counter. They pushed it through the portal. She straightened up and looked at me. The bureaucratic indifference was gone, replaced by a sharp, tactical alertness. Miss Phillips, the recorder's office is a ministerial agency. That means we don't judge the validity of documents. If it meets the formatting requirements and the fees are paid, we record it. We don't analyze signatures. We don't check for fraud. That is for the courts. So you are saying you can't help me? I felt the desperation rising again. I am saying I cannot delete it, she said firmly. Once a document is recorded, it is history. It exists forever in the chain of title. Even if a judge voids it later, the image remains in the book. She paused, looking around to make sure no other customers were close enough to hear. However, she continued, her voice lower, we can flag it. I can place a fraud alert on your parcel number, and I can place a recording hold on the index for 48 hours to review for administrative irregularities. It won't stop a determined criminal, but it throws sand in the gears. It forces any new document to be manually reviewed by a supervisor, me, before it gets a book and page number. Do it, I said. Please. I need you to fill out an affidavit of identity theft, she said, reaching under the counter and pulling out a form. And I need a copy of your valid ID. I grabbed the pen. My hand was shaking, but I forced the letters to be legible. I was writing as fast as I could. Mrs. Gable turned back to the screen while I wrote. I am going to check the pending queue, she said to the clerk. If Harborstone is moving this fast, they might not be done. What is the pending queue? I asked, not looking up from the form. It is the holding tank, Mrs. Gable explained. When a document is uploaded electronically, it sits in a queue for a few minutes to an hour for quality control checks before it gets stamped and becomes official. If something is in there, it hasn't happened yet, but it is about to. I signed the affidavit with a slash of ink. Here, Mrs. Gable didn't take it immediately. She was staring at the monitor. Her body had gone rigid. Alice, she said to the clerk, her voice tight. Refresh the queue, now. The clerk hit F5. The screen blinked. A new line of text appeared at the top of the list, highlighted in yellow, indicating unverified status. Mrs. Gable turned the screen toward me again. You are just in time, she said grimly. I looked at the yellow line. Document type, deed of trust. Grantor, Raymond Phillips and Celeste Phillips. Borrower, Savannah Phillips. I blinked. I read it again. Borrower, Savannah Phillips. Wait, I said, the room spinning slightly. Why is my name on the borrower line? If they transferred the property to themselves, why am I the borrower? Mrs. Gable clicked the line to open the preview. It is a HELOC, she said, scanning the text. A home equity line of credit. First position lien. Amount, $350,000. She looked at me, and her eyes were full of a dark understanding. They aren't just selling it, honey, she said softly. They are taking a loan out against it first. And look at the structure. They are using the property as collateral, but they have listed you as a co-borrower, or maybe... She squinted at the chaotic legal language of the rider. No, she corrected herself. They are the owners, so they are pledging the asset, but they have put the loan in your name as the primary obligor. They are using your credit history to secure the cash. They are stealing the equity, I said, my voice trembling with rage. They are going to take the $350,000 in cash and leave me with the debt? But I don't own the house anymore. How can I owe money on a house I don't own? That is the trick, Mrs. Gable said. If this gets recorded, the bank gives them the check. But the lien attaches to the property, and if your name is on the note, the bank comes after you when they default. They get the money, you get the foreclosure. She looked at the timestamp on the pending entry. Received 0 minutes ago. It is in the buffer, Mrs. Gable said, her hand hovering over her keyboard. It hasn't been stamped. It hasn't been assigned a book and page number. Technically, it doesn't exist yet. Stop it, I pleaded. Can you stop it? Mrs. Gable looked at the clerk, then at me. She adjusted her glasses. Alice, initiate a code 33, administrative hold for potential identity verification failure. On which document? Alice asked. On the entire parcel, Mrs. Gable said. Lock the queue. She typed a command into her terminal. It was a long string of characters. She hit enter with a definitive, plastic clack. On the screen, the yellow line turned red. A padlock icon appeared next to the parcel number. Recording suspended. Okay, Mrs. Gable exhaled. I have frozen it, but I can't hold it forever. The submitter, Harborstone, just got an error message on their end saying submission failed. Contact County. They are going to call us within 5 minutes. She looked at the pending document again, tapping the screen where the submitter info was flashing. And when they call, she said, I need to know exactly what we are dealing with, because look at the authorized filer on this mortgage. I leaned in one last time, my eyes burning. I looked at the name attached to the Harborstone account that had just tried to saddle me with $333,000 in debt. It wasn't my father. It wasn't my mother. Authorized filer. Evan Phillips, my brother. The breath went out of me in a rush. Evan, my big brother, the one who taught me how to fish, the one who said he hated their games. He's the authorized filer, I whispered. Does he work for Harborstone? Mrs. Gable asked. No, I said, my mind racing. He is an architect. He has nothing to do with title work. Well, Mrs. Gable said, printing out a screenshot of the frozen queue. Someone is using his credentials, or he is sitting at a computer right now pressing send on your financial ruin. She handed me the paper, the ink still warm. You have the evidence, Miss Phillips. Now you need to move fast, because a recording hold is just a dam made of paper, and the water is rising. The printer behind Mrs. Gable whirred, a mechanical grind that sounded like a heavy gate slamming shut. She ripped the page from the tray and slid it across the laminate counter toward me. There, she said, her voice devoid of the earlier sympathy. It was professional now, cold. That is your shield. For the next 48 hours. This parcel is radioactive. I looked at the paper. It was a screenshot of the internal county database. Across the top, a bright red banner had been superimposed over the entry for Unit 7B. Fraud alert active, recording suspended, requires supervisor override. Beneath it was the log for the document that was currently stuck in the digital throat of the system. Instrument. Deed of trust. Principal amount. $350,000. Borrower. Savannah Phillips. Lender. Private Portfolio Servicing. LLC. I took my phone out and snapped a picture of the paper, ensuring the red banner was in focus. This was not just a bureaucratic delay. This was a crime scene photo. I want the transmission log, I said, looking up at Mrs. Gable. I need to know exactly where this came from. I need the IP address, the timestamp, and the user credentials. Mrs. Gable hesitated. Technically, that is internal IT data. Technically, I said, my voice hard. Someone just tried to embezzle $350,000 in my name using your system. If you do not give me that log, my attorney will subpoena it by the end of the day, and she will name the recorder's office as a negligent party for facilitating identity theft. It was a bluff. I didn't have an attorney yet, but Mrs. Gable didn't know that. She typed a command, a second page printed. She handed it to me without a word. I scanned the lines of data. Submission time, 1422 hours. Origin IP, 74 dot. Submitter account, ID, EP-arch-design-auth. Contact line, Evan Phillips. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Evan, my brother, the architect, the one who had built tree houses with me, the one who had sworn, just last Thanksgiving, that he was done with Dad's controlling behavior. Is that a known user? I asked, pointing to the ID. It is a verified professional account, Mrs. Gable said. Architects and engineers use them to file notice of commencements or lien waivers. It has high-level clearance. That is why it bypassed the initial filter. I stared at the name, Evan Phillips. He hadn't just signed it. He had used his professional license, his credential, to push the button. Thank you, I said. I didn't wait for her response. I turned and walked away from the counter. Finding a corner of the lobby near a potted ficus plant that looked as tired as I felt. I pulled up Evan's contact in my phone. I didn't call. I sent a text. I am at the county recorder. I am looking at a blocked deed of trust for $350,000 with your name on the submitter line. Call me, now. I watched the screen. 3 dots appeared instantly, then they disappeared. Then the phone rang. Savannah? His voice was breathless, high-pitched. He sounded like he was running. Savannah, where are you? I told you where I am, I said. Why is your name on a mortgage application for my condo? It is not a mortgage, he said, the words tumbling out in a panic. Dad said it was just a tax maneuver. He said the HOA fees were going to trigger a reassessment if we didn't encumber the property. He said he explained it to you. He explained nothing, I said. And I don't own the property anymore. Evan, did you know that? Did you know they transferred the deed to themselves yesterday? There was a silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. What? Evan whispered. No, that is not right. Dad told me the title had to stay in your name for the trust structure to work. He said the loan was… Wait. You filed it, I said. You used your account. He sent me the packet, Evan cried. His assistant, Linda, she emailed me this morning. She said the closing window was tight, and since I had the e-recording software on my laptop, I had to upload it for them because their system was down. She said you were on board but you were busy at work and couldn't get to a computer. Forward me the email, I said. Savannah, I swear. Forward me the email. A second later, my phone buzzed. I opened the email app. The subject line was urgent. Filing for Unit 7B, time sensitive. I read the body text. It was classic Linda, efficient, pushy, and speaking with my father's voice. Evan, your father needs this uploaded via your portal immediately to lock in the rate. Savannah is aware but unavailable to sign. Just sign as authorized agent to facilitate. It keeps things simple. Do not delay, or the tax liability will attach. It keeps things simple, I read aloud. That is what they told you. I didn't read the whole attachment, Evan stammered. I just saw the signature page. It looked like you had already signed it. I didn't sign it, Evan. It is a forgery, and you just attempted to commit mortgage fraud. Oh my God, he breathed. Savannah, what do I do? I can cancel it. You can't cancel it, I said. I already froze it. The county has flagged it. If you try to access that file now, you will trigger a secondary alert. Savannah, please, Dad said. I don't care what Dad said. I cut him off. My voice was calm, terrifyingly so. I was looking at the email again, specifically at the routing instructions included in the PDF attachment Evan had sent. Return recorded documents to Raymond Phillips, P.O., Box 404. They changed the mail routing, I said. They set up a P.O. box so I wouldn't see the notices. Did you know about that? No, I swear. You are going to stop talking, Evan. You are going to go home. You are going to sit down, and you are not going to call Dad. You are going to wait for me to tell you what to do next. Do you understand? Savannah, he is going to be so angry he is going to be arrested if he is not careful, I said. And so are you. Sit tight. I hung up. I stood there for a moment, breathing in the conditioned air. My family was not a family. It was a cartel. And my brother was the mule. But I couldn't dwell on that. I had stopped the money. But I hadn't stopped them. They still had the physical keys. They still had the listing agent. And according to the fraud hold, I had bought myself 48 hours of pause, but possession was 9/10 of the law. I needed to secure the perimeter. I dialed the number for Tide Glass Management. The building manager, Mr. Henderson, answered on the second ring. He was a nice man, retired military, who liked rules. Tide Glass front desk, he said. Mr. Henderson, this is Savannah Phillips in 7B. Oh, Miss Phillips. Good afternoon. I believe we have an estoppel request for your unit. Congratulations on the sale. There is no sale, I said. Mr. Henderson, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I am emailing you a document right now. It is a fraud alert from the Mariner County Recorder's Office. I switched apps and attached the photo of the red banner, sending it to the building's general inbox. I just sent it. Open it, please. I heard clicking on the other end, then a sharp intake of breath. What is this? He asked. My parents have attempted to fraudulently transfer the title of my unit. The county has suspended all activity. I am the legal owner. The deed from my grandfather is the only valid instrument. I see, Mr. Henderson said, his voice dropping into a professional caution. This is a civil matter. Miss Phillips, we try not to get involved in family disputes. This isn't a dispute. It is a crime in progress. Now, I need to know, is there a lockbox on my door? Yes, he said. The realtor, Mr. Sterling, installed it this morning. He showed us the listing agreement. The listing agreement is invalid, I said. I want that lockbox removed, immediately, and I want the door code changed, the one my parents have. Wipe it, Miss Phillips, without a court order. I can't just cut off access to people who are listed on the county website as the owners. I checked the site myself this morning. It says Raymond and Celeste Phillips. Refresh the page, I said. Look at the hold. The hold prevents new changes, he argued. It doesn't erase the current record. Until a judge says otherwise, the record lists them. If I lock them out, I could be liable for restricting access to the owner of record. He was right, technically, until the quitclaim was voided. They were the owners. The fraud alert just stopped them from selling or borrowing. It didn't stop them from entering. Okay, I said, thinking fast. What about the bylaws? The bylaws state that any change in ownership requires a board interview and approval before access tokens are issued. Did my parents interview with the board? Well, no, Mr. Henderson admitted. It was a family transfer, so we waived. Don't waive it, I snapped. Follow the bylaws. Mr. Henderson, if they are the new owners, they have to go through the process. Until then, they are guests. And as the current occupant and the person whose furniture is inside, I am revoking their guest privileges. If you let them in, you are facilitating a security breach. Silence. I had him. He was a rules guy. I had just used the rules to tie his hands. I can disable the lobby fob, he said reluctantly, and I can remove the lockbox because it violates the hallway aesthetics policy. We usually don't allow them overnight. Do it, I said. And Mr. Henderson, if anyone tries to bring a locksmith, or if anyone tries to force that door, I want you to call the police, not my father. The police. Understood, he said. I will have maintenance go up now. I felt a small knot loosen in my chest. I had the county frozen. I had the building locked down. Thank you, I said. I am coming back there now. Wait, Mr. Henderson said. Miss Phillips? Yes? You might want to hurry. Why? My receptionist just signaled me, he said, his voice lowering to a whisper. There is a courier in the lobby. He is asking for you, but he didn't come from a delivery company. Who is he? He says he is a mobile closing agent. He says he has corrective paperwork that needs to be signed immediately to lift a county hold. He says your father sent him. My grip tightened on the phone. They knew. They had seen the error message from the county, realized the digital door was slammed, and immediately dispatched a human to force the physical door. They were trying to get me to sign a document that would likely correct the fraud by making it retroactive, a ratification of their theft. Do not let him up, I said. He is already at the elevator. Mr. Henderson said. He has a visitor pass. I hung up and ran for the door. I did not go back to the condo. The courier was there. The pressure was there. If I walked into that lobby, I would be walking into a physical confrontation. And in a shouting match between a hysterical daughter and a concerned family representative, the daughter always looks like the unstable one. I needed something heavier than my voice. I needed a badge. I turned the car around in the parking lot of the government center, but I didn't leave the complex. I drove 300 yards to the low, brick building flying the county flag, the sheriff's substation, District 4. The interior was not dramatic. It smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. There were no holding cells visible, just a waiting area separated from the duty desk by a pane of bulletproof glass. I walked up to the window. My hands were empty except for the folder containing the papers Mrs. Gable had printed for me and the original deed from my grandfather. "I need to file a report regarding identity theft and attempted mortgage fraud," I said. The deputy behind the glass looked up. He was older, with a crew cut that had gone gray and eyes that had seen everything twice. His nameplate read, Deputy Russo. He didn't reach for a pen. He leaned back, assessing me. "Property dispute?" he asked. "Forgery," I corrected, "and fraudulent conveyance of real property involving a sum exceeding $100,000. He buzzed the door open. "Come on back." I sat at a metal desk while Deputy Russo pulled up a blank incident report on his computer. He looked at me, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Okay," he said. "Start from the beginning, and keep it to the facts. If this is a civil matter, like an inheritance argument, I can't help you. That is for civil court." "It is not an inheritance argument," I said. Opening my folder, I laid the documents out in a line, chronologically, from left to right. I didn't tell him about my mother's manipulative dinners. I didn't tell him about my father's controlling tendencies. Emotional context makes you look weak in a police station. Evidence makes you look credible. "Fact 1, I said, pointing to the first document. 2 weeks ago, I became the sole fee simple owner of Unit 7B at Tide Glass Condominiums via this warranty deed, recorded legally." Russo nodded. He typed a few lines. "Fact 2, I continued, sliding the screenshot of the forged quitclaim deed forward. "Yesterday, at 14:45 hours, a quitclaim deed was e-recorded transferring the property to Raymond and Celeste Phillips. I did not sign this. I was not present for the notarization. The ID attached to the digital record is expired and was stolen from me 3 years ago." Russo leaned in, looking at the scan of the license on the printout. "Expired in 2020, he muttered. "That shouldn't have passed verification." "Fact 3, I said, slamming the final paper down. This was the one that mattered. The screenshot of the pending queue with the red fraud alert banner. 45 minutes ago, an attempt was made to record a deed of trust against the property for $350,000. The borrower is listed as me. I did not apply for this loan. The submitter was using my brother's professional credentials, but he claims his account was accessed by a third party under false pretenses." Russo stopped typing. He looked at the amount, $350,000. That number changed the temperature in the room. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. This was grand larceny territory. "You have a hold on the title?" he asked. "Yes. Mrs. Gable at the recorder's office placed a 48-hour administrative freeze." Russo stood up. He adjusted his belt, the heavy equipment shifting with a leather creak. "Okay, this is specific enough, but for me to write this up as a crime and not a civil complaint, I need to verify that pending lien myself. I need to see that your name is on the financial hook. The recorder's office is across the parking lot," I said. "I can walk you there." "Let's go," he said. Walking back into the recorder's office with a uniformed deputy changed the atmosphere instantly. The whispers in the waiting area stopped. The clerk sat up straighter. Mrs. Gable was still at her station, and when she saw Deputy Russo, she didn't look surprised. She looked relieved. "Mrs. Gable," Russo said, nodding, "I need to see the pending queue for the Phillips parcel." "Station 6, she said, ushering us behind the counter. I stood back, letting the 2 officers of the system speak their language. Mrs. Gable pulled up the frozen screen. The red banner was still there, pulsing silently. Russo leaned over the monitor. He read the lines of data. He traced the borrower field with his finger. "Savannah Phillips," he read aloud. "Primary obligor." He turned to me. "If this had gone through, and the loan went into default, the lender would have come after you for the full amount. Your parents would have the cash. You would have the judgment." "I know," I said. "And this," Russo said, pointing to the notary block on the forged quitclaim deed Mrs. Gable brought up next. "Remote online notarization, Commonwealth of Virginia." "Yes," Mrs. Gable said. "That is the instrument of transfer." Russo looked at me with a grim satisfaction. You know what the good thing about these remote notarizations is, Miss Phillips? No, I said. Video, he said. By law, the notary has to record the entire audio-video session and keep it on a secure server for 10 years. If someone impersonated you, there is a movie of them doing it. He turned back to Mrs. Gable. Can we get that video? Not from here, Mrs. Gable said. We just get the PDF. The video stays with the RON platform or the title company. Russo pulled a notepad from his pocket. Who is the title company? Harborstone Title and Escrow, I said. They are the ones pushing the file. Russo nodded. Get them on the phone. Use the speaker. I dialed the main number for Harborstone. My hands were steady now. Having a gun and a badge standing next to me gave me a profound sense of clarity. Harborstone Title. How may I direct your call? A cheerful voice answered. Compliance Department, I said. Urgent legal matter. There was a click, then a hold music track that sounded like soft jazz. It played for 30 seconds before a woman's voice cut in. She sounded sharp, busy, and defensive. Compliance. This is Sarah. Sarah, this is Savannah Phillips, I said. I am the owner of Unit 7B at Tide Glass. I am standing here with Deputy Russo from the Mariner County Sheriff's Office. I looked at Russo. He leaned toward the phone. This is Deputy Russo. Badge number 492, he said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming the voice of absolute authority. I am investigating an active case of identity fraud and attempted grand theft involving a file currently in your system. File number. He looked at the printout I held. File HS774, I supplied. HS774, Russo repeated. I am providing you with case number 260119. I am instructing you to freeze this file immediately. No funds are to be disbursed. No documents are to be recorded. There was a silence on the other end. The defensiveness evaporated, replaced by the terrified compliance of a corporate employee who realizes they are standing on a landmine. Deputy, Sarah said, her voice shaking slightly. We received a system error from the county recorder regarding that file about an hour ago. We were trying to troubleshoot it. Do not troubleshoot it, Russo snapped. That error is a law enforcement hold. We have reason to believe the deed transferring title to the sellers was forged using a fraudulent remote notarization session conducted through your platform. Oh, Sarah said. It was a small sound, but it carried a lot of weight. I see. We are going to need the full audit trail. Russo continued. IP logs, the identity verification credential analysis, and the video recording of the RON session. You are required to preserve these evidences. Of course, Sarah said quickly. We will lock the file. We will place it in litigation hold status immediately. Nothing will move. Good, Russo said. Expect a subpoena for those records by Monday morning. Deputy, Sarah interrupted, her voice urgent. You should know, regarding the disbursement. What about it? Russo asked. The file is fully funded, she said. The lender, Private Portfolio Servicing, wired the $350,000 into our escrow account this morning. We were just waiting for the recording confirmation to release the funds to the sellers. I felt the blood drain from my face. The money was already there. It was sitting in an account, waiting for a single digital handshake to release it into my parents' pockets. The sellers are listed as Raymond and Celeste Phillips, Sarah continued. They have been calling us every 10 minutes asking for the wire confirmation number. Do not release that money, Russo commanded. If 1 cent leaves that escrow account, Harborstone will be named as an accessory to the fraud. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Absolutely. I am flagging the account now. The funds will stay in escrow. Russo signaled for me to hang up. I tapped the red button on my screen. The line went dead. Okay, Russo said, exhaling. That stops the bleeding. He tore the top sheet off his notepad and handed it to me. It had the case number written in bold, black ink. This is your shield, he said. If anyone tries to enter that condo, if anyone tries to change the locks, if anyone calls you from a bank, you give them this number. You tell them it is an active criminal investigation." "Thank you," I said. I felt a wave of exhaustion hit me, but I pushed it back. "One more thing," Russo said, looking me in the eye. "The compliance officer said the money is in escrow. That means the loan closed. The lender thinks they have a valid mortgage. The only thing missing is the recording stamp." "What does that mean for me?" I asked. "It means there is a private lender out there who thinks they just bought a piece of your house," Russo said. "Harborstone will hold the money. But the lender is going to want answers. And your parents—" He paused, glancing at the door of the recorder's office. "Your parents are expecting a $350,000 wire transfer today," he said. "When that money doesn't hit their account by 5 o'clock, they are going to know something went wrong. They are going to call the title company. And the title company is going to tell them that the sheriff put a stop to it." I understood. I had cut the line, but I hadn't caught the fish. I had just made them angry. "They will come for me," I said. "They might," Russo said. "But now you have the paper. In this world, Miss Phillips, paper wins. You have the original deed. You have the fraud alert. And now you have a police report." He tapped the case number in my hand. "Go home. Change your locks again if you have to. If they show up, do not open the door. Call 911. Tell the dispatcher you have a case number and there are suspects on the premises." Suspects. He called my parents suspects. It was the first time anyone had used the correct word. I walked out of the recorder's office into the blinding afternoon sun. The humidity hit me like a physical weight. I checked my phone. It was 2:30. I had the case number. I had the freeze. But as I walked to my car, my phone buzzed. It wasn't a text. It was an email notification from Harborstone. Subject: Transaction Update. File HS 774. I opened it. It was an automated message, likely triggered before Sarah had slapped the manual lock on the system. Closing disclosure. Signed. Escrow account funded. Disbursement scheduled for today. The closing window was today. I had stopped it with minutes to spare, but the machine was huge, and it had momentum. The money was sitting there, pulsing, and my parents were waiting for it. I got into my car and locked the doors. I wasn't going to hide. I was going back to Tide Glass. I had to secure the physical space before they realized the digital space had been shut down. I started the engine. The radio came on. Some upbeat pop song that felt jarringly out of place. I turned it off. I needed to get to the condo. I needed to see if the courier was still there, and I needed to find out who was in that video. Because if my parents had used a remote notary, they needed a face. They needed someone who looked enough like me to fool a camera, or a notary who was corrupt enough to look the other way. I put the car in drive. The investigation wasn't over. It was just moving from the paperwork to the people. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the sheriff's substation, the air conditioning blasting against the sweat that had pooled at the base of my neck. I had the case number. I had the freeze. But Deputy Russo's words were ringing in my ears like a fire alarm. Paper wins. Paper only wins if the right people see it before the money moves. I opened my laptop on the passenger seat, tethering it to my phone's hotspot. The connection was slow, agonizingly so, but I forced myself to breathe. I needed to construct the digital wall that would trap them. I pulled up the email thread with Sarah from Harborstone's compliance department. I didn't type a polite greeting. I didn't ask how her day was. I treated the email field like a weapon. Subject: Urgent. Fraud. Stop order. File HS-7-7-4. Law enforcement case attached. I attached the photo of the red fraud banner from the recorder's database. I attached the scan of my grandfather's original warranty deed. I attached the screenshot of the pending deed of trust with the borrower field highlighting my name. And finally, I attached the image of the sheriff's case number card Deputy Russo had just handed me. I typed the body of the email with fingers that felt like ice. To Harborstone Compliance. Reference is made to file HS-774. Please find at case number 260119, filed with the Mariner County Sheriff's Office regarding identity theft, forgery, An attempted mortgage fraud associated with this transaction, the sellers, Raymond and Celeste Phillips, do not hold valid title. The quitclaim deed recorded yesterday was a forgery achieved via a fraudulent remote online notarization session. The borrower, Savannah Phillips, did not authorize or sign any loan documents. Any disbursement of funds to the sellers will be considered money laundering and facilitation of grand theft. Preserve all video evidence, IP logs, and audit trails immediately. Savannah Phillips, owner. I hit send. I watched the progress bar crawl across the top of the screen. Sending. Sending. Sent. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. My inbox chimed. It was Sarah. She must have been sitting with her finger hovering over the reply button. Ms. Phillips, we are in receipt of your documentation. The file has been formally frozen. The lender, Private Portfolio Servicing, has been notified of the title defect. No funds will be disbursed. We have placed a litigation hold on all digital records, including the RON video session and the signing packet prepared by the mobile notary service. For your information, the buyer listed on the purchase agreement was not an individual, but an entity, Driftwood Coastal Holdings, LLC. We are also freezing the earnest money deposit pending investigation. I stared at the screen. Driftwood Coastal Holdings, LLC. It sounded generic. Corporate. But it was a shell. My parents were selling the condo to a shell company, likely one they controlled or one owned by a partner, to extract the equity and bury the ownership trail. They were going to wash the title through an LLC so that by the time I realized the condo was gone, it would be owned by a faceless corporation protected by layers of legal insulation. I didn't have time to dig into the LLC yet. I had to kill the showing. I forwarded Sarah's email, the one confirming the fraud investigation, to the real estate agent. Mr. Sterling, the man who had sneered at me in my own doorway 2 hours ago. Mr. Sterling, please see the attached stop order from the title company and the active police case number regarding Unit 7B. The listing is fraudulent. You are currently trespassing on a crime scene. Remove the listing from the MLS immediately. If you or any associates attempt to enter the property again, I will have you arrested for breaking and entering. I didn't wait for his reply. I closed the laptop. The digital perimeter was secure, but the physical world was vibrating in my pocket. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. A rapid-fire assault. It wasn't my father. He was too smart to leave a text trail when he knew the legal walls were closing in. It was my mother. I looked at the screen. The name Mom flashed with a benign cheerfulness that made my stomach turn. Savannah, where are you? The courier said you weren't at the condo. Your father is very worried. We are trying to protect you, and you are making a scene. This is a family matter. Why are you involving strangers? You are embarrassing us. I stared at the words, embarrassing us, not, we are sorry we stole your house, not, we are sorry we tried to saddle you with $350,000 in debt, but embarrassing. To Celeste Phillips, a felony was manageable, but a public scene was a tragedy. Then, a photo message came through. I tapped it to download. It was a picture of my front door, Unit 7B, but it looked different. The handle, the brushed nickel lever I had wiped down this morning, was gone. In its place was a heavy, gold-toned keypad lock, the kind that connects to Wi-Fi. It looked expensive. It looked permanent. Beneath the photo was a single line of text. We had to secure it. You are clearly not in a state to manage the property right now. We will discuss the keys when you calm down. I felt a scream build in my throat. Hot and jagged, they had changed the locks. While I was at the sheriff's office filing a report to stop them from stealing the house. They had sent a locksmith to physically take it. They were gaslighting me in real time. They were framing the theft as security, and my defense as instability. You are clearly not in a state to manage the property. That was the narrative they would feed the neighbors, the building management, and eventually, the judge. Poor Savannah. She is having an episode. We had to step in. I didn't reply. I didn't type back. I know what you did. I didn't engage. I put the car in gear. I wasn't going to ask for the code. I wasn't going to beg for access to my own home. I dialed the sheriff's non-emergency line again, asking to be patched through to Deputy Russo. "Russo," he answered. His voice clipped. "It is Savannah Phillips," I said, my voice shaking with the effort to remain calm. "They changed the locks. My mother just sent me a photo. They installed a smart lock while I was filing the report." "Did they have a writ of possession?" Russo asked immediately. "Did a sheriff meet them there to execute an eviction?" "No," I said. "They just did it. They called a locksmith and did it." "That is unlawful interference," Russo said. "Even if they think they own it, you are the established occupant. They cannot lock you out without a court order. That is a constructive eviction. It is illegal." "I am going back there," I said. "I am going to drill it out." "Do not do it alone," Russo warned. "Do you have the building security involved?" "I am calling them now." "Good. Tell them to document the lock change. Keep the old lock if you can get it off. It is evidence of the timeline. It proves they exercised control over the property after the fraud alert was active." "Okay," I said. "Thank you." I drove the 3 miles back to Tide Glass condominiums like I was driving an ambulance. I didn't care about the speed limit. I cared about the violation. My home, my sanctuary, the one place Grandpa had given me to be safe, had been breached. When I pulled into the circular drive, I didn't park in the guest spot. I parked right in front of the glass doors. I walked into the lobby. Mr. Henderson, the manager, was standing behind the front desk. He looked pale. He was holding a phone to his ear, but when he saw me, he hung up immediately. "Miss Phillips," he said, coming out from behind the desk. I tried to stop them." "You let them up," I said. I didn't shout. I was past shouting. "They had the deed." "Miss Phillips," Henderson stammered. "Your father. He can be very persuasive. He said there was a gas leak concern. He said they needed emergency access to install a monitoring device. He brought a licensed locksmith." "A gas leak," I repeated. "In an all-electric building." Henderson flinched. He knew. He knew he had been bullied, and he knew he had folded. "Where are they now?" I asked. "They left," he said. "About 20 minutes ago. They said not to let you up without their permission. They said you were a danger to yourself." I reached into my bag and pulled out the case number card. I slammed it onto the marble counter. "This is a criminal case number. Mr. Henderson, my parents are suspects in a felony fraud investigation. By allowing them to change that lock, you just assisted in an unlawful eviction." Henderson stared at the card. He swallowed hard. "I need the maintenance supervisor," I said. "And I need a drill. We are going upstairs. Now." 5 minutes later, I was in the elevator with Henderson and a burly maintenance man named Carlos, who was holding a heavy-duty cordless drill and looking confused. The elevator ride was silent. I watched the numbers climb. 4, 5, 6. When the doors opened on the 7th floor, I walked straight to 7B. There it was, the gold keypad lock. It glared at me. It was a brand I recognized, one that allowed remote locking and unlocking from a smartphone. My mother was probably looking at the status on her screen right now. Locked. "Carlos," I said, stepping aside. "Remove it." Carlos looked at Henderson. Henderson nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. "Do it. Carlos, she is the resident. We have no eviction order on file." Carlos stepped up. He didn't ask for a code. He positioned the drill bit directly into the keyhole of the expensive gold lock. The drill whined. The sound was violent and satisfying. Metal shrieked against metal. The drill bit into the mechanism, chewing through the pins that my parents thought would keep me out. Crack! The lock gave way. Carlos pulled the mechanism off the door, wires dangling like severed veins. "Don't throw it away," I said. "Give it to me." Carlos handed me the broken lock. It was heavy. I put it in my bag, right next to the deed. It was evidence. It proved they had physically seized the property. "Put the old cylinder back in," I told Carlos. "I have my key." "I don't have the old one," Carlos said. "The locksmith took it." Of course they did. They removed the original lock so I couldn't prove my key ever worked. "Do you have a spare building standard lock?" I asked. "Yeah, in the shop," Carlos said. "I can install a temporary deadbolt." "Give me 10 minutes. I will wait right here," I said. I stood in the hallway while Carlos ran back to the service elevator. Henderson lingered, looking like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. "Mr. Henderson," I said, "the lobby has cameras, correct?" "Yes, ma'am. High definition. 2 angles." "And the elevators?" "Yes." "I want the footage," I said. "I want to see exactly who came up here. I want to see who stood in front of this door and authorized the locksmith to drill out my lock. I need to know if it was my father or the courier." I can let you view it in the security office," Henderson said, "but I can't give you a copy without a subpoena." "Viewing it is enough for now," I said. Carlos returned with a new deadbolt. He worked quickly, installing a simple stainless steel lock. He handed me 2 fresh keys. "Thank you," I said. "No one else gets a copy, not the realtor, not my parents. If they ask, tell them the lock is part of a police investigation." I opened the door. The condo was cool and silent. The smell of lemon cleaner was gone, replaced by the faint, metallic scent of the drilled lock. I walked in, checked the rooms. Nothing had been taken. They hadn't come to steal my furniture. They had come to steal my sovereignty. I locked the new deadbolt from the inside. Then I turned to Henderson. "Let's go see that video." We went down to the security office, a small room behind the front desk filled with monitors. Henderson sat at the main console and typed in his password. "Timestamp was roughly 14:30, he muttered, scrubbing the timeline bar. "There," I said. "Pause." The image on the screen froze. It was the elevator camera. The timestamp showed 2:32 in the afternoon. There were 3 people in the elevator car. One was a man in a blue work shirt, the locksmith, holding his tool bag. One was the courier I had been warned about, a young man in a polo shirt holding a clipboard. And the third person, I had expected my father. I had expected Raymond Phillips, with his red face and his bluster, shouting orders. But Raymond wasn't there. Standing in the center of the elevator, wearing a cream-colored silk blouse and oversized sunglasses, was my mother, Celeste. She wasn't looking at the floor. She was looking at her reflection in the elevator's mirrored wall. She was adjusting her hair. She looked calm, composed. She didn't look like a woman who was worried about her daughter's stability. She looked like a woman who was handling a pest control problem. "Zoom in," I whispered. Henderson zoomed in on her hand. She was holding a phone, on the screen, visible even in the grain of the security footage. Was the text message thread she had with me? She was typing the message about securing the property while she was riding the elevator up to break into it. My father hadn't done this. He might have ordered it, he might have shouted about it, but Celeste had executed it. She had looked me in the eye digitally, played the victim, and then physically supervised the drilling of my door. "It was her," I said, my voice barely a sound. "It was always her. My father was the hammer. But my mother was the architect." I took my phone out and recorded the screen, capturing the video of Celeste Phillips smoothing her hair as she prepared to evict her daughter. "Save that clip," I told Henderson. "Do not delete it." I turned and walked out of the security office. The realization hit me harder than the fraud itself. My father wanted the money, but my mother wanted to erase me. She wanted to turn me into an invalid, a dependent, someone who needed securing. I wasn't just fighting for a condo anymore. I was fighting for my sanity, and I knew exactly where she would go next. If the lock didn't work, and the bank transfer didn't work, she would go for the one thing that could override all of it. She would go for my reputation. My phone buzzed again, a new email notification, not from the bank, not from the lawyer, from my boss at Redwood Ridge Compliance Group. Subject: Urgent personnel matter. Meeting required. Savannah. We received a concerning call regarding your license status and some pending legal issues. Please report to HR first thing tomorrow morning. They hadn't just attacked the house, they had called my job. I was standing in the lobby, leaning against the marble concierge desk, watching the elevator feed on Mr. Henderson's monitor. The lobby of Tide Glass was designed to intimidate. It was all cold stone, vaulted ceilings, and aggressive floral arrangements. It was a space built for people who spoke in hushed tones about dividends. My parents did not storm in. They did not burst through the glass doors with fists raised. That would have been honest. Instead, they flowed into the room like a change in weather. Raymond Phillips walked in first. He was wearing his casual country club attire, pressed linen trousers and a polo shirt that cost more than my first car. He looked tanned, healthy, and utterly reasonable. Behind him came Celeste. She had removed her sunglasses, and her face was arranged in a mask of concerned maternal patience. They walked straight toward me. They didn't look at Mr. Henderson. They didn't look at the security guard. They looked only at me, and their eyes were filled with a terrifying pity. "Savannah," my father said. His voice was warm, the baritone rumble that he used to close deals. "Thank God you are here. We were so worried when we saw the lock had been tampered with again." "I didn't tamper with it," I said. My voice was low. I didn't move away from the desk. "I removed an illegal device installed by trespassers, and I restored the security of my home." My mother sighed, a soft, tragic sound. She reached out as if to touch my arm, but I took a half step back. Her hand hovered in the air, then dropped gracefully to her side. "Sweetheart," she said, "please, not here, not in front of the staff. You are making a spectacle." "I am not the one who drilled a hole in a door I don't own," I said. "Own?" my father repeated, chuckling softly. He shook his head, looking at Mr. Henderson with a conspiratorial wink, as if to say, "Kids, right? Savannah, we need to have a realistic conversation about that word. Ownership implies capacity. It implies responsibility." He stepped closer. Entering my personal space, he smelled of expensive cologne and mints. "Do you have any idea what the insurance premiums are for a beachfront unit in this zone?" he asked. "They just tripled. Savannah, tripled. And the Homeowners Association is voting on a special assessment for the seawall repair next month. It is going to be $50,000 per unit." He paused, letting the number hang in the air. "We looked at your finances," he continued, his voice dropping to a confidential whisper. "You can't carry this place. It is a liability. It is a bleeding wound in your portfolio. Grandpa Warren meant well, but he didn't understand the market forces. We are selling it to protect you." It was a masterclass. He wasn't stealing from me. He was saving me. He was the benevolent patriarch shielding his incompetent daughter from the harsh realities of coastal real estate economics. "I have a job," I said, "and I have the trust distribution Grandpa left for maintenance. I know about the assessment. I budgeted for it. The trust isn't enough," my mother cut in. Her voice was sharper now. "Not for the lifestyle you want to lead. Not if you want to be secure." "If you are selling it to protect me," I said, looking directly at my father, "then why is my name listed as the borrower on a $350,000 loan application that was flagged for fraud an hour ago?" The silence that followed was absolute. My father's smile didn't vanish, but it froze. The corners of his eyes tightened. The warmth evaporated from his face, leaving only the hard, calculating flint underneath. "That," he said, clearing his throat, "was a bridge mechanism, a temporary leverage to clear the title issues and facilitate the transfer. It was a tax strategy." "A tax strategy where I take the debt and you take the cash?" I asked. The deputy called it attempted grand theft. "Don't use that word," my mother hissed. She stepped forward, her eyes darting to Mr. Henderson, who was pretending to type but was listening to every word. "We are your parents. We have carried you your entire life. And this is how you repay us? By calling the police? By blocking a transaction that—" She stopped. She took a breath, and her face changed again. The anger dissolved into tragedy. She looked at me with wet, pleading eyes. "Savannah," she whispered, "it isn't just about you. It's about Maris. Maris, my younger sister, the golden child who had never quite managed to shine on her own. Maris, who started businesses that failed and married men who borrowed money." "What about her?" I asked. "She is in trouble," my mother said, her voice trembling. "Real trouble this time. There is a lawsuit, a creditor from her old boutique. They are threatening to seize her house. She has 2 children. Savannah, your nieces. We need the liquidity," my father said, seizing the narrative my mother had opened. "We are cash poor right now because of the market dip. The condo is the only liquid asset we can access quickly. We were going to sell it, pay off Maris's debt, and put the rest in a managed fund for you. We were trying to save the whole family." "So you stole my house to pay for Maris's mistakes," I said. "We didn't steal it," my mother cried out, forgetting to whisper. "We reallocated family resources. We are a family. Savannah, we help each other. Why are you so selfish? Why do you need a $2 million apartment to sit empty all week while your sister might lose her home?" It was the ultimate weapon. Guilt. If I kept the condo, I wasn't just a victim. I was the villain destroying my sister's life. "If you needed money," I said, "you could have asked me. You could have asked me to take a loan. You could have asked me to sell it." "We didn't think you would understand," my father said coldly. "You have always been rigid, like your grandfather." "I would have said no," I admitted, "because Grandpa left it to me, not to Maris, not to you." "Then you left us no choice," my father said. He straightened his cuffs. "Now, give me the key. The buyer is expecting a final walkthrough at 5. We can smooth this over with the county if you just sign a ratification waiver. We can tell them it was a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "Savannah," my father warned, stepping forward again. "Don't be a child. The deal is done. The money is in escrow." "The money is frozen," a deep voice said from the entrance. My parents spun around. Deputy Russo was standing there. He wasn't alone. He was flanked by another officer, a younger man with his hand resting near his belt. Russo looked tired, but he looked solid. He walked across the lobby floor, his boots making a heavy, rhythmic sound on the marble. "Raymond Phillips?" Russo asked. "I am Ray Phillips," my father said, switching instantly to his respectful citizen persona. "Officer, I am glad you are here. My daughter is having a bit of a mental health crisis, and she has locked us out of our property." Russo didn't smile. He didn't shake my father's hand. He pulled a notebook from his pocket. "I have a case number here," Russo said, reading from the page. 260119, complainant is Savannah Phillips. Subject is the unauthorized transfer of Unit 7B. "It is a misunderstanding," my father said, his smile faltering. "A clerical error. And the unauthorized changing of locks," Russo continued, "which constitutes unlawful interference with a resident's access." He looked at my mother. "Ma'am, we have security footage of you entering the elevator with a locksmith at 14:32 hours. At that time, you had no legal standing to enter the unit." My mother paled. I was checking for a gas leak." "There is no gas in this building," Russo said flatly. "I checked the fire code." He stepped closer to them. "This is a civil standby notice. I am here to ensure the peace. Miss Phillips is the occupant. She has the keys. You do not. You are to leave the premises immediately. If you return without a court order, you will be arrested for trespassing and harassment." "Arrested?" my father sputtered. "Do you know who I am? I am on the board of the Mariner Hospital Foundation." "I don't care if you are the Pope," Russo said. "Walk away. Mr. Phillips, before I have to put you in the back of the car." My father looked at Russo. He looked at me. He saw the wall. For the first time in his life, his money and his name were not working. "Fine," he spat. He turned to me, his eyes cold and dead. "You think you won? You have just declared war on your own blood. Don't expect us to be there when you fail. And you will fail. Savannah, You always do. He grabbed my mother's arm. Come on, Celeste. My mother looked at me one last time. There was no love in her eyes anymore, only calculation. She looked at me like I was a bad investment she needed to liquidate. They turned and walked out. The glass doors slid shut behind them. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My knees felt like water. Thank you, I said to Russo. Don't thank me yet, Russo said grimly. They left because they don't want handcuffs. But they aren't done. People like that don't stop until they get what they think is theirs. Miss Phillips? I turned. It wasn't Mr. Henderson. It was an older man standing by the mailboxes. He was wearing a tweed jacket. Despite the heat, I recognized him. It was Mr. Vance, the president of the Homeowners Association Board. He walked over, looking troubled. I heard the commotion, he said. I didn't want to interfere while the police were here. I am sorry for the disturbance. Mr. Vance, I said, it won't happen again. I am not worried about the noise, Vance said. He adjusted his glasses. I am worried about the paperwork. What paperwork? Your parents, Vance said. They have been very active. You know, this isn't the first time they have accessed the building without you. I frowned. What do you mean? Last month, Vance said. Before your grandfather passed, your father came to the office with a power of attorney document. He said you were traveling for work and had authorized him to inspect the unit for storm damage. He signed the logbook. I never signed a power of attorney, I said. The document looked valid, Vance said. It had your signature. It had a notary stamp. We kept a copy on file. I always thought it was strange because you were here every weekend. But, well, he is your father. I felt a chill go down my spine. Can I see it? I asked. I will pull the file, Vance said. But Miss Phillips, if they have a power of attorney that is recorded in the public record, they don't need to forge deeds. They can just sign for you. Legally, I looked at Russo. He nodded. If they have a POA, they can act as your agent. They can sign loans. They can sell property. And if it was recorded years ago, or forged well enough, they create the paper to make people do the work for them, I whispered. The realtor, the locksmith, the HOA, they just wave a paper, and everyone opens the door. You need to check the clerk's office again, Russo advised. Search for power of attorney. If there is one on file, you need to revoke it immediately. I nodded, my mind racing. I turned to go back to the elevator, but something my father said was nagging at me. The buyer won't wait. He hadn't said, a buyer. He hadn't said, the market. He had said, the buyer. And he had mentioned the price earlier, $2.4 million. He knew the exact price, I said aloud. And he said, the buyer won't wait. That means the buyer isn't just a random LLC. It is someone he talks to, someone who is pushing him. My phone buzzed in my hand, a sharp, violent vibration. I looked down. It was a notification from the title monitoring service, the one Grandpa had made me sign up for. Alert. New recording attempt detected. Doc type. Corrective deed. Status. Rejected. Fraud alert. They just tried again, I said, showing the screen to Russo. A corrective deed. They are trying to patch the hole in the title. They are desperate, Russo said. Desperate people make mistakes. They aren't just desperate, I said. Looking at the rejected notification. They are on a deadline. Someone is waiting for that condo. And I think I need to find out who Driftwood Coastal Holdings really is. I looked at the lobby doors where my parents had exited. They were gone, but the war wasn't over. They had just retreated to their war room to find another piece of paper to throw at me. Mr. Vance, I said, I need that copy of the power of attorney. Now. I will get it, he said. I stood there, the adrenaline turning into a cold, hard focus. They had forged a deed. They had forged a loan. And now, I was about to find out they had forged my entire voice. The silence in the condo was heavy. But it was no longer the silence of a victim. It was the silence of a bunker. After Deputy Russo and the security team left, I double-locked the new deadbolt and dragged a heavy oak chair in front of the door. It was a primitive measure, absurd against the high-tech fraud my parents were perpetrating, but my nervous system needed the physical barrier. I paced the living room, the adrenaline slowly metabolizing into a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. My eyes landed on the mantel, where a framed photograph of my grandfather, Warren, sat. He was on his boat, the loose cannon, holding up a mahi-mahi, and grinning that crooked, sun-weathered grin that used to tell me everything was going to be fine. I picked up the frame. I missed him with a physical ache. He was the only one who saw the sharks swimming in the Phillips family pool. "You knew, didn't you?" I whispered to the glass. As I turned the frame over to wipe a smudge of dust from the velvet backing, I felt something uneven, a lump. It wasn't just the stand. There was something taped between the velvet backing and the glass. I frowned. I sat down on the sofa and pried up the metal tabs holding the backing in place. I slid the velvet board out, taped to the back of the photo, facing inward so it would never be seen unless the frame was dismantled, was a white envelope. On the front, in Grandpa's distinct, blocky scrawl, were the words, "Savannah, if you are reading this, it means they have tried." My breath hitched. I peeled the tape away carefully, treating the paper like an ancient manuscript. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear, from recognition. I opened the envelope. Inside was a silver key, a safe deposit box key, and a single sheet of lined notebook paper. Savannah. I hoped I was wrong. I hoped that when I was gone, Raymond and Celeste would finally be satisfied with their own millions and leave you be. But greed is a thirsty beast, honey, and it never drinks enough. If you found this, they have probably tried to take the condo. They have probably told you it is for your own good. They have probably told you that you can't handle the responsibility. Do not believe them. I have left a safety deposit box at First Coastal Bank on Main Street. Box number 404. The key is enclosed. Go there. Inside, you will find the ammunition you need. I hired a lawyer named Marla Quinn 3 years ago to set this up. She is waiting for your call. Run the record. Trust the record. Love, Grandpa. I read the note 3 times. Run the record. He had used the exact phrase I had been living by for the last 24 hours. He hadn't just left me a property. He had left me a contingency plan. He knew that giving me the condo was like painting a target on my back, so he had given me a shield, too. I looked at the clock. It was 4:45 in the afternoon. The bank would be closing in 15 minutes. I didn't think. I grabbed my bag, the key, and the folder of evidence. I moved the chair, unlocked the door, and ran. I made it to First Coastal Bank with 4 minutes to spare. The branch manager, a woman who looked like she had been waiting for this moment, nodded solemnly when I showed her the key and my ID. "Mr. Phillips left strict instructions regarding access," she said, leading me into the vault. "You are the sole authorized signer." She unlocked the box and slid the long metal drawer out, placing it on a private table. Then she left me alone. I opened the lid. It wasn't filled with gold bars or cash. It was filled with clarity. First, there was a USB drive labeled Evidence, pre-scanned. Next to it was a notarized affidavit signed by Warren Phillips, dated 6 months ago. I scanned the text. In it, Grandpa explicitly stated his intent to deed the property to me and only me. And crucially, he stated that he had never granted, and would never grant, power of attorney to Raymond or Celeste Phillips regarding this property. He had revoked any prior authorizations years ago. He had anticipated the power of attorney trick Mr. Vance had mentioned. He had killed their authority before they even tried to use it. Beneath the affidavit was a checkbook. It was drawn on a trust account named the Savannah Defense Trust. The balance written in the ledger was $50,000. A sticky note was attached to the checkbook. For the lawyers, don't be cheap, fight. And at the bottom, a business card. Marla Quinn, attorney at law, litigation real estate fraud. I closed the box, took the contents, and walked out of the bank feeling like I had just been handed a loaded gun. Marla Quinn's office was not in a glass tower. It was in a converted historic house near the courthouse, with hardwood floors and walls lined with books that looked actually read. Marla herself was a woman in her 50s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a haircut that said she didn't have time for nonsense. She didn't offer me tea, she offered me a legal pad. "Warren told me this day might come," she said, reviewing the documents I had spread out on her conference table. "He hoped it wouldn't, but he paid my retainer 5 years ago just in case." She picked up the sheriff's report and the fraud alert printout. "You did good, Savannah," she said. "Most people crumble when the family pressure starts. They sign the corrective paperwork just to make the shouting stop. You froze the asset. That gives us room to maneuver." "They tried to change the locks," I said. "My mother was directing it." "Of course she was," Marla said, not looking up from the papers. "Raymond is the bluster, Celeste is the strategy. Now, let's look at this buyer." She pulled up her laptop and typed in the name of the LLC from the Harborstone email I had forwarded to her. "Driftwood Coastal Holdings, LLC, registered in Delaware," she muttered. "Generic agent, but let's look at the managers." She clicked through a few databases, paid services that went deeper than Google. "Here we go," she said, pointing to the screen. "The LLC isn't owned by your father directly. That would be too clumsy. It is owned by another entity, Blue Water Capital, which lists a principal address in Miami." She cross-referenced the address. "Do you know a man named Julian Thorne?" she asked. "Thorne?" I searched my memory. "Yes, he is Dad's golf partner. They develop strip malls together." "Exactly," Marla said, a tight smile appearing. "This isn't an arm's-length transaction. Your father is selling your condo to a shell company controlled by his business partner. I guarantee you there is a side agreement where your father buys it back or splits the equity later. They are washing the title." "Why?" I asked. "Why go through all this trouble?" "Because if they sell it to a stranger, the stranger asks questions," Marla said. "If they sell it to Thorne doesn't care about the title defect because he knows it's a sham. They just need to get the deed out of your name and into an LLC so they can mortgage it to the hilt. They wanted that $350,000 fast, probably to cover a margin call or a debt we don't know about." "Maris," I said. "My mother said my sister was in trouble." "That fits," Marla said. "Desperation breeds speed, and speed breeds mistakes." She turned back to her computer. "I am sending a formal notice of fraud and pendency of action to everyone, the HOA, the building management, Harborstone, the real estate brokerage, and Mr. Thorne's registered agent. The subject line will be, 'Any reliance on purported title constitutes notice of fraud.' If they move a muscle after receiving this, they lose their immunity." "What about Evan?" I asked. "He signed the application. He is terrified." "He should be," Marla said grimly. "He committed a felony, but he is also our best witness." She looked at me. "You need to flip him. Savannah, fully. I need an affidavit from him stating exactly how he received the instructions, who sent them, and that he did not witness you sign anything. If he gives us that, we can paint him as an unwitting pawn. If he protects them, he goes down with the ship." I nodded. I took my phone out. "I will call him." "No," Marla said. "Get him on a video call. I want to see his face, and I want him to see yours." I dialed Evan on FaceTime. He answered on the first ring. He looked wrecked, pale, sweating, sitting in his car in his driveway. "Savannah," he choked out. "Dad is blowing up my phone. He says I messed up the filing. He wants me to go to the notary tomorrow to fix it. Evan, listen to me," I said, holding the phone steady. "I am sitting with Grandpa's lawyer. We know about Julian Thorne. We know about the shell company. This isn't a tax strategy. It is a criminal conspiracy." Evan's eyes widened. "Julian Thorne? Dad told me the buyer was an investor from New York." "He lied," I said, "just like he lied about me knowing about the loan. Evan, you are the authorized filer. If this goes to court, and it will, the prosecutor is going to look at whose login was used. It is your name on the digital gun." I didn't know," Evan whispered. "Then prove it," Marla said, her voice cutting in sharp and clear. "This is Marla Quinn, attorney for your sister. I am emailing you an affidavit. You are going to sign it, get it notarized, legally, in person, and send it back to me within the hour. And you are going to forward every single email, text, and voicemail from your father and his assistant regarding this property. If I do that, he will kill me," Evan said. "If you don't," Marla said, "you are looking at 5 to 10 years for mortgage fraud. Your choice. Evan, are you the son who covers for Daddy, or are you the victim he manipulated?" There was a long silence. I saw the struggle in my brother's face, the lifetime of conditioning fighting against the cold reality of prison time. "Send the affidavit," Evan said, his voice breaking. "I have the emails. Linda sent me the instructions at 7 a.m. yesterday. She even included a script of what to say if the system flagged the ID. Send it all," Marla commanded. We hung up. Marla looked at me. "He will do it. Fear is a great motivator." "There is one more thing," I said. "The estoppel request. The HOA said they received a request 4 days ago. That was before Evan got involved." "Right," Marla said. "Let's track that." She logged into a forensic document service she used. "If they sent an estoppel request to the HOA, they usually have to attach an authorization form from the owner. Let's see if the HOA uploaded it to the management portal." Marla had ways of accessing data I didn't understand, or maybe she just knew which public records mirrored the private ones. She found the entry in the county's miscellaneous records where the HOA had flagged the unit status. "Here is the request," she said. "Sent from celestep_design@gmail.com. "My mother's email," I said. "And look at the attachment," Marla said, opening the file. It was a PDF of a handwritten note. "Please process estoppel for sale. My daughter is traveling. Celeste Phillips." "But look at what is underneath it," Marla said, zooming in. Attached to the email wasn't just the note. It was a photo of my old driver's license, the expired one, but in the photo, you could see the background. It wasn't a scanner bed. It was a granite countertop, a very specific granite with blue veins. "That is her kitchen island," I said. I recognized the stone. She put the ID on her counter and took a picture of it with her phone. "And look at the corner," Marla pointed. In the very corner of the photo, visible only because Marla had zoomed in to 400%, was the edge of a thumb holding the license down. The nail was painted a soft, iridescent pearl. "Mom's manicure," I said. "She always gets that color." "Digital fingerprints," Marla said, leaning back in her chair with a satisfied sigh. "She didn't just direct it. She executed the identity theft. She used a stolen ID to impersonate you to the HOA to facilitate the sale." Marla hit print. "We have them. Savannah, we have the deed fraud, the mortgage fraud, the witness tampering with the lock, and now the identity theft traced directly to your mother's kitchen." She gathered the stack of papers into a neat pile. "I am filing for an emergency injunctive relief hearing tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I am going to ask the judge to quiet title immediately and issue a restraining order against your parents regarding the property." "Will they come?" I asked. "Oh, they will come," Marla said, "and they will bring their own lawyers, and they are going to try to destroy you." She looked at me seriously. "Savannah, you need to be ready. They aren't going to argue the signatures. The signatures are obviously fake. They are going to argue capacity." "What do you mean?" "They are going to say you authorized it," Marla said. "They will say you gave them permission verbally, and that you are now suffering from a mental break, paranoia, or a substance issue. They will try to paint you as unstable, and themselves as the desperate parents trying to manage your assets to save you from yourself. They will say the forged signature was just them acting as implied agents because you were unavailable due to your condition." I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. It was exactly what my mother had texted. "You are clearly not in a state to manage the property." "Let them try," I said. They will do more than try, Marla warned. They will have affidavits from friends, maybe even a doctor they paid off. They will try to make the judge think that giving the house back to you is dangerous. She pushed the USB drive from Grandpa across the table to me. But they don't know about this, she said. Warren recorded videos. Savannah, he made statements. If they try to say you are incompetent, we are going to play a video of your grandfather telling the court exactly who is sane and who is a predator. He knew, I said again, clutching the drive. He knew, Marla agreed. Now, go home. Do not answer your phone. Do not open the door. Tomorrow morning, we go to court. And we end this. I left Marla's office as the sun was setting. The sky was a bruised purple. I drove back to Tide Glass, the new key heavy in my pocket. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was a plaintiff. And tomorrow, I was going to put my parents on the stand. The morning sun did not bring warmth. It brought the cold. Sterile light of litigation. At 8 o'clock sharp, Marla Quinn stood at the clerk's window in the circuit court, filing a stack of documents thick enough to break a toe. I wasn't there. I was sitting in her conference room, watching the digital notifications roll in on my laptop like incoming mortar fire. Ex parte motion for temporary injunction. Complaint to quiet title. Emergency motion to stay disbursement of funds. Marla wasn't just pausing the game. She was burning the board. She had sent preservation letters to everyone. Harborstone Title, the remote notary platform in Virginia, the internet service provider for my father's office, and even the email provider my mother used. The subject lines were identical and terrifying. Notice of duty to preserve evidence regarding active criminal investigation. We weren't asking them to look for evidence. We were telling them that if they deleted a single byte of data, they would be accomplices. My phone rang. It was my father. I looked at Marla, who had just walked back into the room, dusting her hands off as if she had just taken out the trash. She nodded. "Answer it," she said, "but put it on speaker. And Savannah, do not agree to anything. Just listen." I tapped the green button. "Savannah." My father's voice filled the room. It wasn't the angry voice from the lobby yesterday. It was the disappointed, weary voice of a patriarch dealing with an unruly toddler. "We need to stop this madness. Your mother is in tears. You have police officers threatening us, lawyers freezing our accounts. Do you have any idea what you are doing to the family name?" "I am protecting my property," I said. "And I am protecting my credit score." "It is a misunderstanding," he said smoothly. "We can fix it, but we need to sit down, face to face. Without these aggressive intermediaries, come to the house. Let's have coffee." "No house," I said. "And no coffee, if you want to talk. We do it via Zoom, now, and I'm recording the session for my legal counsel." He hesitated. I could hear him breathing, calculating the risk. He was arrogant enough to think he could talk his way out of a recording. He thought his charm was stronger than my evidence. "Fine," he said. "Send the link." 10 minutes later, the large monitor in Marla's conference room flickered to life. My parents were sitting in their library. The backdrop was perfect. Leather-bound books, a tasteful orchid, and a framed photo of the whole family from 10 years ago, placed strategically over my father's shoulder. They looked immaculate. My mother was wearing a soft blue cardigan, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My father had his reading glasses in his hand, a prop for seriousness. "Savannah," my mother started, her voice trembling, "I don't know who is putting these ideas in your head. We only ever wanted to help you." "Help me by selling my home?" I asked. "Help me by forging my signature?" "It wasn't a forgery," my father interjected, his tone reasonable. "It was an administrative proxy. Grandpa Warren always intended for that condo to be a family asset. He told me that 1,000 times. 'Ray, take care of the girls.' That is what he said. He knew you couldn't handle the upkeep alone." "The deed says otherwise," I said. "The deed says Savannah Phillips, not the Phillips Family Trust." Paperwork is just paperwork, my father scoffed, waving a hand. The intent is what matters. And the reality is, Savannah, you are not in a position to manage a $2.4 million asset. You have been fragile lately. We have all seen it. The isolation, the obsession with the past. I have a full-time job, I said. I have a savings account. I have never missed a bill. But you are overwhelmed, my mother added softly. We did it to take the burden off you. We were going to put the money into a managed fund. You wouldn't have to worry about taxes or hurricanes. And yes, we were going to use a portion to help Maris. Because that is what families do. We share. So you signed my name, I said. I needed them to say it. I needed the audio clip. We expedited the process, my mother said, a flash of irritation breaking through her sorrow. You were being difficult, Savannah. You wouldn't give us the spare key. You wouldn't return calls about the insurance. We had a buyer ready, a cash buyer who wouldn't wait. We couldn't let the deal fall through just because you were playing hard to get. So you used my old driver's license, I pressed. The one I lost. I found it in the drawer, my mother said, shrugging as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It was just for the ID verification step. It is a technicality. Savannah, the system is so slow. I just wanted to get the packet initialized so you could sign the final papers later. I was trying to save time. Marla, sitting just out of frame, pumped her fist silently. Admission. My mother had just admitted on a recorded line that she knowingly used an invalid ID to bypass a security check for speed. She thought she was explaining a shortcut. She was confessing to identity fraud. And the remote notary? I asked. I wasn't there. Mom, who was on the camera? My father leaned forward, cutting off the line of questioning. He sensed the trap closing. That is irrelevant, he snapped. The point is, the deal is done. The money is in escrow. If you blow this up now, the buyer walks. We lose the liquidity. Maris loses her house. Is that what you want? Do you want to be the reason your sister is homeless? I am not the reason, I said. You spent money you didn't have. We are filing a motion, my father said, his voice turning cold. We are petitioning the court for an emergency guardianship. We are going to show the judge that you are acting irrationally, that you are a danger to your own financial well-being. We have statements from friends. Savannah, people who have seen you lately, people who think you are unraveling. You are going to sue me for being crazy because I caught you stealing my house? We are going to intervene, he corrected. To save you. The screen went black. He ended the call. I sat there, staring at the blank monitor. My heart was hammering, but Marla was smiling. They just dug the hole deeper, she said. Your mother admitted to using the ID. That destroys the "we had permission" defense. You don't need to sneak an old ID if you have the owner's consent. They are going to say I am incompetent, I said. They are going to try to take away my legal rights so they can sign for me legally. Let them try, Marla said, because look what just came in. She spun her laptop around. It was an email from the compliance officer at Harborstone. The subject line was Audit Trail. File HS 774. We have the IP logs, Marla said. She opened the spreadsheet. The quitclaim deed was uploaded at 14:45 yesterday. She read, the IP address is static. It resolves to a commercial fiber line registered to Phillips Development Group, Suite 400. My father's office, I said. And here is the RON session log, she continued. The session lasted exactly 3 minutes. The connection originated from the same IP address, but look at the device ID. She pointed to a string of numbers. That is not a laptop, she said. That is a mobile device, specifically an iPhone 14 Pro Max. My mother has an iPhone 14, I said. She was holding it in the elevator. So your father initiated the connection from his office Wi-Fi, and your mother likely used her phone to perform the face scan. Marla deduced. But here's the smoking gun. She opened a second attachment. It was a statement from the signing agent, the remote notary sitting in Virginia. Statement of Jessica Miller, Notary Public. I recall the session for the Phillips transaction. The video feed was blurry at the start. The individual on camera was wearing sunglasses and a hat. I asked them to remove them. They hesitated. The audio feed had a significant echo, as if someone else was in the room directing them. I flagged the ID mismatch because the expiration date was 2020, but I received a direct message from the submitter account saying, ID is valid per state extension guidelines. Please process urgently. Executive client. I felt pressured to complete the seal. She was coerced, I said. They bullied the notary. And they were sloppy, Marla added. But wait, there is more. While we were on that call, your parents were busy. She refreshed the county clerk's page. Look at this. A new entry had appeared in the index. Stamped just 10 minutes ago. Document type. Corrective deed. Grantor, Raymond and Celeste Phillips. Grantee, Raymond and Celeste Phillips. Notes. Correction of Scrivener's error. They tried to file a correction? I asked. They tried to overwrite the fraud, Marla said. They filed a document saying that the original quitclaim had a typo in the signature block and they were ratifying the transfer. It is a legal Hail Mary. They are trying to say, oops, we messed up the paperwork, but we meant to own it, so here's the fixed version. Did it record? No, Marla said, pointing to the status column. Rejected. The fraud hold worked. The system spit it out because Mrs. Gable locked the parcel. But look what they attached to it, Marla said. Opening the rejected image file, it was a letter, a formal letter on my father's company letterhead, addressed to the county recorder, to whom it may concern. Please accept this corrective deed to cure a defect in the title for Unit 7B. The previous owner, Savannah Phillips, is currently undergoing medical evaluation for cognitive instability and has provided verbal assent to this transfer, though she is unable to sign physical documents at this time. This transfer is necessary to preserve the asset from foreclosure due to her mismanagement. I read the words, medical evaluation, cognitive instability. They weren't just lying to me. They were putting it in the public record. They were creating a paper trail of my insanity to justify their theft. They just handed us the motive, Marla said. They put in writing that they are transferring the property because they think you are crazy, not because you sold it. That contradicts the quitclaim deed, which claimed you signed it willingly. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, she signed it yesterday, and also, she is too crazy to sign anything, so we are doing it for her. They are panicking, I said. They are flailing, Marla corrected. And they just gave us the final piece of the puzzle. The phone on Marla's desk buzzed. It was the internal line. Yes, Marla answered. She listened for a moment, her face growing serious. Okay, thank you. Clerk. She hung up and looked at me. That was the judge's judicial assistant, she said. Your father's lawyers just filed for an emergency hearing to lift the fraud hold. They are claiming irreparable harm because the sale is about to collapse. When is the hearing? Tomorrow morning, 7:45 a.m., Judge Holloway. Is he good? He is tough, Marla said. He hates drama, but he loves evidence. She stood up and walked to the whiteboard, picking up a red marker. This is it. Savannah, tomorrow isn't just a hearing about a house. It is a hearing about who you are. They are going to walk into that courtroom with a narrative. They will have a story about a loving family rescuing a sick daughter. They will have tears. They will have the corrective deed. And what do we have? I asked. Marla tapped the stack of papers on the table. We have the IP logs. We have the notary statement. We have the video of your mother in the elevator. We have Evan's affidavit. She paused, looking at the USB drive from Grandpa. And we have Warren. She put the drive into her pocket. But there is one thing that will decide this, she said. The RON video. Harborstone just confirmed they are sending the file over securely. It should be here within the hour. What if the video is dark? I asked. What if you can't see who signed? We don't need to see the face clearly, Marla said. We just need to prove it wasn't you. My phone buzzed again. It was Deputy Russo. I answered. Miss Phillips, his voice was gravelly. I just got off the phone with the Harborstone compliance team. They reviewed the video. And? I can't tell you details over an unsecure line, Russo said, but I will say this. The individual in the video, she forgot to take off her jewelry. I froze. My mother wore a specific bracelet, a heavy gold charm bracelet that jingled when she moved. She never took it off. It was her signature. Russo, I said, is it enough? It is enough for a warrant, Russo said. I will see you in court tomorrow. Miss Phillips, and I am bringing the district attorney. I hung up. The room felt suddenly small. A warrant, I whispered to Marla. He said he is bringing the DEA. Marla sat down slowly. The game had changed. We weren't just fighting for a quiet title anymore. We were about to send my parents to prison. When we walk into that courtroom tomorrow, Marla said, there is no going back. If we play that video, your family is over. Raymond and Celeste will be felons. Are you ready for that? I thought about the knocks on the door. I thought about the lockbox. I thought about the $350,000 of debt they tried to hang around my neck. I thought about the letter calling me unstable. They hadn't hesitated to destroy me. They hadn't hesitated to erase my name and replace it with a lie. I looked at the picture of Grandpa Warren on my phone screen. Trust the record. He had said, they made their choice, I said. Play the video. Courtroom 4B smelled of lemon polish and old anxiety. It was 7:45 in the morning, a time when the air conditioning was running too high and the coffee hadn't kicked in yet. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Marla Quinn. My hands were folded on the oak surface, resting on top of a 3-inch binder that contained the autopsy of my family's betrayal. On the other side of the aisle, Raymond and Celeste Phillips sat with their legal team. They had brought 2 lawyers, men in pinstripes who looked like they charged by the breath. My parents looked immaculate. My mother wore a soft gray suit that whispered, aggrieved victim, and my father wore his serious, elder statesman tie. They didn't look at me. They looked at the judge's bench with an air of respectful impatience, as if this whole proceeding was a parking ticket they just needed to pay so they could make their tea time. All rise, the bailiff intoned. Judge Holloway entered. He was a man with a face like a topographic map, etched with lines of skepticism. He sat down, adjusted his glasses, and looked at the docket. Phillips versus Phillips, he read, his voice dry. Emergency motion for injunctive relief and complaint to quiet title. I have read the filings. Let's not waste time with theatrics. Counsel for the plaintiff. You are alleging fraud on the record? Marla stood up. She didn't use notes. She didn't need them. We are, Your Honor, we are alleging a systematic, multi-layered scheme to strip the plaintiff, Savannah Phillips, of her fee simple interest in the property known as Unit 7B, Tide Glass Condominiums. We have evidence of forged deeds, fraudulent remote notarization, identity theft, and unlawful constructive eviction. My father's lawyer, a man named Mr. Sterling, no relation to the realtor, stood up smoothly. Objection, Your Honor. These are inflammatory characterizations. This is a family dispute regarding the management of an asset where the title holder, my client's daughter, has demonstrated significant cognitive instability. My clients acted as implied agents to preserve the property's value. Cognitive instability, Judge Holloway repeated. He looked at me. She looks fairly stable to me, Counselor. But let's look at the paper. Ms. Quinn, walk me through the chain. Marla walked to the podium. She placed the first exhibit on the projector. Exhibit A, she said. Warranty deed, recorded 14 days ago. Grantor, Warren Phillips. Grantee, Savannah Phillips. Properly notarized. Witnessed and recorded. This established my client as the sole owner. Agreed, the judge said. Exhibit B, Marla swapped the paper. Quitclaim deed, recorded 2 days ago. Purportedly transferring title from Savannah Phillips to Raymond and Celeste Phillips. This document is a forgery. Your Honor, Sterling interrupted. We have a corrective deed pending that clarifies the parents were acting under verbal proxy due to the daughter's medical state. Hold your corrective deed, Judge Holloway snapped. I want to hear about the forgery. Thank you, Marla continued. To prove this deed is fraudulent, we don't just have a handwriting expert, we have the digital footprint, she signaled to the clerk. Exhibit C, the Harborstone Audit Trail. The screen displayed the spreadsheet. The quitclaim deed was uploaded from an IP address registered to Phillips Development Group, the first defendant's office. Marla narrated. It was uploaded at 14:45 hours. At that exact time, my client was at her residence, miles away. Proxies can use office computers, Sterling argued weakly. Can proxies use stolen identities? Marla asked. She flashed the next slide. Exhibit D, the estoppel request sent to the HOA. The attachment shows the plaintiff's expired driver's license. Forensic analysis shows this photo was taken on a countertop matching the defendant's kitchen island. My mother shifted in her seat. She touched her pearl necklace, her composure showing a hairline crack. And, Marla said, her voice dropping an octave, we have the testimony of the unwitting accomplice, Exhibit E, affidavit of Evan Phillips. My father's head snapped up. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't seen the email chain I sent Marla. Evan Phillips, the son of the defendants, states under oath that he was instructed via email by his father's executive assistant to use his professional credentials to file a deed of trust against the property. He was told, quote, just sign as authorized agent to facilitate. It keeps things simple. He was not told the property had been transferred. He was used as a mule to encumber the asset with $350,000 of debt. Marla let that number hang in the air. $350,000, Judge Holloway repeated. Where is that money now? Frozen in escrow, Your Honor, Marla said. Thanks to the sheriff's intervention. This is a misunderstanding, my father hissed, loud enough for the microphone to catch. We were managing the liquidity for the family trust. Mr. Phillips, silence, the judge warned. We have established the forgery and the financial motive, Marla said. Now, let's address the cognitive instability defense. The defendants claim they had to break into the unit and change the locks because my client was a danger to herself. She was unresponsive, Sterling cried. We have texts. You have a video, Marla corrected. Exhibit F, surveillance footage from the Tide Glass elevator. The video played on the large screens. There was my mother, Celeste Phillips, standing in the elevator with the locksmith. She wasn't crying. She wasn't wringing her hands in worry. She was checking her makeup in the mirror. She was typing calmly on her phone, sending the gaslighting text to me, while preparing to drill the lock of her daughter's home. The courtroom was silent. The image of my mother preening in the mirror while on her way to evict me destroyed the concerned parent narrative faster than any argument could. Self-help eviction is illegal in this state, Judge Holloway muttered, writing furiously. This looks like a calculated takeover. It was, Marla said. But, Your Honor, if you have any doubts about who signed that deed, we have one final exhibit. The defendants used a remote online notary platform to execute the forgery. By law, that session was recorded. My mother froze. She stopped touching her pearls. She looked like a statue made of ice. Exhibit G, Marla said. The Rowan video session. The bailiff dimmed the lights. The screen flickered, then showed a grainy webcam view. The angle was low. Looking up, a woman was sitting in a chair, wearing large sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. She was holding a card up to the camera. My old, expired license. Please state your name, the electronic voice of the notary asked from the speakers. Savannah Phillips, the woman in the video said. The voice was not mine. It was lighter, breathless, trying too hard to sound young. Please remove your glasses for verification, the notary requested. The woman hesitated. Then, from off-camera, a deep, unmistakable male voice boomed. Just process the damn thing. The ID matches. We are on a schedule. My father's voice, it echoed in the courtroom, arrogant and commanding. The woman on screen adjusted her glasses but didn't take them off. As she moved her hand, something jingled. A heavy gold charm bracelet slid down her wrist, catching the light of the webcam. It was the same bracelet Celeste Phillips was wearing right now, in the courtroom, 3 rows away from the screen. I looked at the judge. He was looking at the bracelet on the screen. Then he looked at my mother's wrist. My mother instinctively pulled her sleeve down, covering the gold. It was over. "Stop the tape," Judge Holloway said. His voice was incredibly quiet. The lights came back on. The silence was heavy, pressing down on us like water pressure. "Mr. Sterling," the judge said, looking at the high-priced lawyer, "do you have any explanation for why your client is on video impersonating the plaintiff, while your other client directs the fraud from off-screen?" Sterling stood up. He looked at his clients, then at the judge. He closed his folder. "Your Honor, in light of this new evidence, we withdraw our opposition to the quiet title complaint." He folded. He threw them to the wolves to save his own license. "I didn't authorize that," my father shouted. Standing up, "This is a setup. That video is manipulated." "Sit down, Mr. Phillips," the bailiff barked, stepping forward. Judge Holloway banged his gavel. It sounded like a gunshot. "I have seen enough," the judge said. "The court finds that the quitclaim deed recorded on January 21st is a forgery and is hereby void ab initio. The court confirms that fee simple title remains vested in Savannah Phillips pursuant to the warranty deed from Warren Phillips." He turned a page in his file. "The court further orders the immediate release of all liens and the dissolution of the pending mortgage application. The funds in escrow are to be returned to the lender. The clerk is directed to expunge the fraudulent instruments from the record." He wasn't done. He took off his glasses and leaned over the bench, looking directly at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Phillips, you came into my courtroom claiming you were protecting your daughter. The evidence shows you were predating on her. You abused the court system, you abused the recording system, and you abused your family trust." "Your Honor, please," my mother sobbed, finally finding real tears. "We were just trying to help the family." "You helped yourself," the judge said cold. "I am issuing a permanent injunction. You are to have no contact with the plaintiff or the property at Tideglass Condominiums. If you step foot on that premises, you will be arrested." He turned to the bailiff. "Furthermore, due to the clear evidence of identity theft, forgery, and wire fraud presented in Exhibit G, I am referring this entire file to the State Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. The video evidence is to be preserved and transferred to the district attorney immediately." My father's face went gray. The criminal investigation wasn't a threat anymore. It was a court order. "Court is adjourned," Judge Holloway said. The gavel banged again. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I didn't fall. Marla closed her binder with a satisfying snap. "We got them. Savannah. They aren't walking out of here as business tycoons. They are walking out as suspects." I looked across the aisle. My parents were arguing with Mr. Sterling. My father was red-faced, pointing at the screen. My mother was sitting perfectly still, staring at her wrist, at the bracelet that had betrayed her. They didn't look at me. They couldn't. The narrative they had built, the story of the unstable daughter and the hero parents, had been dismantled. Frame by frame, they hadn't lost because I took revenge. They lost because the record didn't lie. I turned and walked out of the courtroom. I didn't stay to watch them panic. I didn't need to see their downfall. I just needed to see the exit. 2 hours later, I was sitting on the balcony of Unit 7B. The lock on the front door was mine, a solid, unpretentious deadbolt that opened only for me. The for sale listing had been scrubbed from the internet. The $350,000 was gone, sent back to the lender, taking the debt with it. I held a cup of coffee, watching the Atlantic Ocean churn against the shore. The waves were gray and white, rhythmic and indifferent. I picked up the phone. I had one text from Evan. "I am sorry. I really am. I told the DA everything. I didn't reply yet. Forgiveness was a bridge I would build later. Maybe, or maybe not." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the USB drive Grandpa Warren had left me. I hadn't needed to play his video in court. The surveillance footage had been enough. But I wanted to hear him now. I plugged the drive into my laptop and clicked the file named My Final Word. The video opened. Grandpa was sitting in his fishing chair, wearing his lucky hat. He looked into the camera, his eyes crinkling with that familiar mischief. "Hey, Savannah." His voice came through the speakers, tinny but warm. "If you are watching this, it means you beat them." "I knew you would. You are a Phillips. But you are the good kind. You are the kind that builds your own raft." He leaned forward. "Don't let them make you bitter, honey. Just let them make you smart. Enjoy the view. You earned it." I closed the laptop. I took a deep breath of the salt air. It tasted clean. It tasted like ownership. I wasn't the daughter who needed saving anymore. I was the woman who had saved herself. I looked out at the horizon, where the sea met the sky, and for the first time in my life, I didn't see a boundary. I saw a beginning. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. Are you listening on your commute, at the gym, or maybe relaxing at home? Please let me know in the comments below so we can connect. And don't forget to subscribe to the Monica Revenge Stories channel. Like this video, and hit the notification bell so this story can reach even more people who need to hear that the truth always wins.